Baldwin County Planning and Zoning Commission to order. This time, if you will stand with me, we'll have a prayer and a pledge of allegiance. Father, we're thankful for the day and for the blessings we've each received. We're thankful for the blessing of living in a great county. Father, we just pray that you'll be with us tonight, help us conduct this business in an orderly fashion. Pray that we honor you in what we say and do. We show respect to each other. Thank you for all of our staff, our workers in this county that make this a great place to live. We pray that you'll just continue to bless them and decisions that will be made. Again, thank you, Father, for all that you do for us. We pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'll call roll. Brandon Bias.
Here.
Robert Davis. Plumer Tonsmeyer.
Here.
Jason Padgett. Michael Mullet.
Here.
Greg Seibert.
Here.
Bill Booyer.
Here.
Jamie Stradiger.
Here.
Mike McKenzie. Glenn Seal. Here. Diane Burnett.
Here.
Michael Fletcher. Here. And Danny Bolton. All right, we have a quorum. First off, let me do this, and then we'll do our minutes, but I want to welcome Glenn Seal. He's a representative from District 37. It's his first meeting, so we're glad to have you aboard, Glenn. All right, you have received a copy of the minutes of our work session from September 7th and also our regular meeting on September 7th. Are there any corrections beyond what we've already communicated to staff? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Move they be approved.
Okay, Mr. Boogers made the motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
And Ms. Diane Burnett has seconded the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, minutes are approved. All right, so a quick announcement or just an explanation of what we're going to do for those especially that have not been to our meetings before. We have quite a few items on our agenda tonight, as seems to be the usual case. So we will open each item for a public hearing. Our staff will make a presentation. We will have opportunity as a commission to interact with them. We will have the applicant come up and do his presentation. If you have signed up, I have you on a screen here. So if you have signed up, you will be called on to speak. And you will come to the front podium here and give us your concerns or what questions you have. Once everybody has spoken, we may have the applicant come back to try to answer some of those questions, or our staff may choose to answer some of those questions. So we are, and you'll see it was something new we're doing tonight, we are limiting the public to 3 minutes. At 2:45, there will be an alarm. You'll hear it. You'll see it on the screen. You'll have 15 seconds to wrap it up, and we ask you to respect that. And and we also ask, as you can see, we have a large crowd. We may have, if there's an item that's controversial, we would ask that you try to limit your comments to something that has not been said. It's not necessary to get up and tell us, 15 people tell us that there's a traffic issue. You know, if one person says that, if you've got another issue, please let us know. We want to hear all the issues, if there are any. So hopefully that somewhat explains. When I feel like we have done all that we need as far as interaction, allowed everybody to speak, I will close the public hearing. When I do so, that will be the end of the public speaking. So don't get mad and raise your hand, because I won't recognize you to speak after I close the public hearing, because that'll be the opportunity we'll have to decide and make a decision. And we'll have a motion and we'll vote, and then we'll have the answer, and we'll go on to the next item. So we have a lot of items tonight. We would ask one thing. Usually when we have a large crowd that's here for a particular item, when it's over with, sometimes we need to go on to the next item. So we're going to ask, if you will tonight, please respect when your item's over with and you're going to leave, just go on. There's plenty of room outside where you can talk, but please let us go on to our next item. And please mute your cell phones. That'd be helpful. All right. Anything I forgot? All right, we're going to open a public hearing for our first case then, which is case number PER 23-17, which is an extension request for...
Mr. Chairman, just as a reminder, these first three items are old business items.
Okay.
And so they won't actually have public hearings on them.
First two?
I believe it's the first three are all old business.
Okay. All right, so we'll have our first case then is this PR 23-17 extension request for the S-20051 Summer Acres RV Resort, which was formerly Sandy Toes RV Park. Mr. King?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Good afternoon, Planning Commissioners. A very routine extension request here for you, Planning Commission, and considering that all of the background information is all in your packet, we will go straight to the staff recommendation. And this is a one-year extension. As you saw, the case was previously Sandy Toes. During one of the prior extensions, it was renamed Summer Acres. We're recommending approval of the one-year extension subject to the information on screen. I will call to the attention of the Planning Commission and also the applicant that this is their final request for an extension. If they do not get it built before this expiration you see on screen, they will have to start over with a brand new application. Happy to answer questions.
Any questions for staff? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve subject to staff conditions.
Okay, Mr. Vice has made a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Is that Greg?
Yep.
Mr. Seibert seconding the motion. Anybody have any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, for our next case is Z23-28, which is the BC Property Investments property.
All right, this rezoning request was heard last month and was tabled. This is a request to rezone 8.85 acres from RA and RSFE to B3. The purpose of this request is the applicant would like to put Baldwin sales and rental business on the subject property. This business currently exists in the city of Loxley. They sell the golf carts and rent out smaller equipment. They want to move the business to this property. The subject property is currently vacant. It meets all of our standards except for number 3, which is the master plan issue. Here is the zoning map. You can see part of it's zoned RA and part of it's RSFE. Staff has recommended approval of this request, and I believe one of the issues was the applicant wasn't here at the last meeting to explain what exactly he's doing, and he should be here tonight to explain his plans for this rezoning.
Okay, any questions for staff?
And just as a quick refresher, mainly because we have so many members of the public in the room, on the aerial imagery, you'll see what looks like residences, mobile homes to the north end. That's actually because it's mobile home sales taking place there. They're not actually single-family dwellings immediately to the north. And that was brought in as a grandfathered zoning type with that use on it. So it's kind of a confusing situation, but it is a commercial area.
Okay. Thank you, Matthew. All right. If the applicant's here, I'll just have you come on up, or the representative. Yeah, come up here. And I don't even remember who had the question the last meeting, so if you remember who you were, I'll let you ask your question. Surely we didn't make him come here for nothing.
One of my concerns last month was, do we have to go as intense as B3 for this business to operate, or would B2 be enough, or do we have to go all the way to B3 as it is surrounded by RSFE and RA?
They would need B3. They will probably have to come back for a commission site plan approval.
So I'll go from memory. So I'm going to I think I recall one of the question was, what in fact were you selling? What was your sales going to be?
So it's going to be mostly golf carts and then rental of small equipment, like little small tracos and things like that. No large equipment, trailers, but they mostly build their own golf carts and sell them. And it's currently what they're doing in downtown Loxley right there. They're leaving that location to come to this one.
Okay, so they're moving to that site? Okay. All right, any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move its approval.
Okay, Mr. Boogers made a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Who was that?
Fletcher.
Michael? Okay, Mr. Fletcher, second the motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, one opposed. All right, next item is case number CSP 23-26, Vertical Bridge LLC. While Ms. Waters is coming up to make the presentation, I know there may be a group here tonight. We heard this at the last meeting, was tabled. We did open the public hearing then. I know that some of you are here, so I've asked if you could have one person to represent you, because we don't need to have a repeat of everything that was said last month. But if once you hear the presentation, if you have something you'd like to say, if you've got a representative, I'll allow them to come up and speak. And while she's getting this together for the planning commission, I'm just going to do a one-time statement here. Does anybody need to declare any prior communication on any item on the agenda tonight? I'll mark it down by that item, and when we come to it, we can address it then. Does anybody have any? Okay. All right. I won't ask that again.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hello, Commissioners. Since this case was presented last month, I may skip through some of the pages that we've already seen, and I will go slower on the updated information here. This is a request for a commission site plan approval, Vertical Bridge LLC, to place a 255 tall self-support tower. Here's your locator and site map, property images, distances from the proposed tower to the residences, as well as this rendering is new from a projection of what the tower is expected to look like. Here is some updated information that the applicant has provided regarding the gap coverage areas. There were some concerns and questions regarding the height of the tower. Here on the left image, this is the image of the proposed site as is. And then as we go on, you can see the increase in coverage with the proposed 250 tower height. And then the coverage decreases as the tower is shortened. Here is the tower height measurement that we had some questions on, and the height is measured in meters. Here's some additional information regarding from the Federal Communication Commission. There, I have highlighted here some other towers within the purview. Here in this image below is the location of where the proposed tower will be placed. And then you can see what other areas have other cell towers of the same build. This is a affidavit stating that a research was done to look for the appropriate location. Here are your zoning requirements, but I'm going to skip through these. Site plan. Here is a state statute regarding considerations for communication cell towers, and staff's recommends approval. subject to the following general conditions. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay.
Fabia, I'm actually going to ask you to go back and just read that statute because it's not something we were aware of, and this is a federal law. If you would just read it for the public so we can understand what that is.
Yes, it says Statute 47 U.S. Code 332 for mobile services states that no state or local government or instrumentality therefore may regulate the placement, construction, and modification of personal wireless facilities on the basis of the environmental effects of radio frequency emissions to the extent that such facilities comply with the Commission's regulations concerning such emissions.
And for clarity, in that statement, when it says commission, they're talking about the Federal Communications Commission?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody have questions for staff?
I have a question on the heights. Was that in meters? Or we talked about that in the work
Yes.
session.
Yes, ma'am.
So do we have, can you tell me what the highest one was equated to feet?
About 310.
Okay. Thank you.
So the point of that slide, Fabio, was that there were several other towers by this same company at heights higher than what proposed here, right? They're 300 feet.
Yes, within the range.
Okay.
Let's just clarify, just in case anybody had looked at everything online, that the chart on page 47, the overall height above the ground was actually listed in meters and not feet.
Right. All right, any other questions? I'm going to allow the applicant's representative to come up and
Patton Hahn, 1901 6th Avenue North, Birmingham, Alabama. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nice to see you again. Fabia, could you go back to the slide with the chart from the FCC that we looked at? The 7 sites.
Which page? I think it's page 47. Sorry, I've updated this a few times, so.
Yes.
Okay.
That chart to the left, just to clarify, those are the 7 towers there listed are towers within 3 miles of this proposed location. And in some materials I sent the commission since the last hearing, we're actually already on most of those towers. And one of them is actually not even been constructed, that last one. So that's, and the 6th one has been canceled. I believe it's being taken down. So that's why we submitted that, because there was a question at the last meeting about why we couldn't put our equipment on another tower. I'm not going to add too much to the staff report. I think your staff's done a very thorough job, and I've worked with them since the last meeting to provide additional information responding to what was discussed at the last hearing. I do think we meet all the conditions for your conditional site approval, but I'm happy to answer any questions that still linger in y'all's mind.
Okay. Any questions? I guess not. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. I know that there is a group here concerned. Is there somebody in the group that wanted to, Glenn?
Yes.
I happen to know Glenn, so.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, committee. I'd like
Mr.
to-
Chairman, did you want to grant our citizen a little bit more than 3 minutes, or do we want to stick with our normal time?
Just do 5 minutes since he's representing the group. Is that good?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee. Appreciate you allowing us to be here tonight. I worked for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for 45 years before I retired. We had this kind of system along the Gulf Coast, all along the Gulf Coast, all the way from Slidell, Louisiana, all the way down to Panama City, Florida. Right before I retired, about 3 years ago, the government informed us that it was radiation that was sent out from these towers. We, as the government, took the towers down, disposed of all the equipment, which was Motorola at the time. Then they went to a different organization, and because of the fact of the radiation, the U.S. Code 33247 states that a lot of materials have been found concerning this material that goes out from these towers. I was one of the, I never did receive a letter informing us about these towers. There was only 10 that received these letters. We went around all the neighborhoods, and just about a month ago, they put up another tower at Plantation Hills. Last week, they took it down because of the fact there's 326 homes that are located in that subdivision that gives out radiation. They took it down. It's only been up about a month. They took it down last week. The next neighborhood close to that, besides Plantation Hills, is Plantation Estates. 246 homes are located in that area, which they said it was too close to all these homes. We have 116 homes that are basically due south of this location of this tower. There's plenty more locations in Baldwin County to present this tower to be erected. We have several things, 3 points that we'd like to share with you tonight. Number one, there's no need for a tower in that location because of all these subdivisions that are close to this tower. The main subdivision, which is north of there, is J.B. Williams subdivision. That is right beside the tower. That tower is too close to that subdivision. It's too close to Shermont Estates, which that's the estates that I live in. That's the subdivision, which is due south of this tower. As I looked out in the field, as I went out there and measured, even if it's in meters, it's still too close to all these subdivisions. It does not say in that particular farmland, there's 150 acres that's adjacent to this property that could be extended out further. There's 100 that would be due south or due west, southwest. There's 160 acres adjoining that, which is due southeast, which that particular setting could be moved instead of close to these subdivisions. Concerning the devalue of our property, this is number 2 on our list. We talked about the concern of our property being devalued. I talked to a good friend of mine, which I've been knowing for about 35, 40 years in real estate, and she said that it would be a really hard problem selling homes once this tower is built. The reduce of the price would go down.
That's time,
extremely.
Mr. Chairman.
I have one more point, sir.
Wrap it up.
Thank you for this committee. Radiation. There is a commitment concerning the government concerning not only the radiation, but the generator that flashes all these lights concerning the height of the tower. This was one of the problems that we had with the Corps of Engineers. They were too high, but also it created this radiation. And I would just like to say to the committee that we want to extend an opportunity to give us time to let them find another location instead of the location there because of the children in our neighborhoods and the things that present with these towers. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Any questions for staff?
Mr. Chairman, could we ask the representative to come back up to discuss the issue that he raised about building and taking down towers?
Yes.
Yeah, my question is, he mentioned that you all had erected a tower and greater, or less than a month later, you took it back down within 3 miles of this. Is this?
I don't believe, I certainly don't believe my client was involved in that. I'm not familiar with that at all.
Okay.
I'll just say, one of the ways that these towers are sited, there's lots of locations you select them. But one of the biggest things is y'all's ordinance. We look at the ordinance and we say, does it allow it to be built there? There's all kinds of ways y'all can structure the support, the siting of these towers. Y'all have chosen the ordinance you have, and we rely on that ordinance and work very hard to comply with the legal requirements of it. Your planning staff had a concern with our initial location of our tower, and we moved it. We worked very hard, and we believe that it complies completely with your ordinance.
Okay, any other questions?
I have a question. Can you speak to or have any information about number 5 on the list that was canceled that you brought up? And is that the one that they were
That one,
referring?
number 6.
Why would that be canceled? And
It could have been, I'm not sure what it was. It wasn't a tower owned by my company. Frequently, these towers get to a point where they're structurally failed. A lot of towers that were erected 20, 25 years ago. They actually have to be a lot stronger now because the antennas that carriers put on them are heavier and bigger because they obviously have a much higher broadcast frequency.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. If you don't have any other questions for staff, then I'll entertain a motion.
Matthew, real quick, it seems that the major opposition boils down to health and safety. But given that this is conditional use, is health and safety an appropriate reason to recommend denial? Given that, I think before, you told us we're not supposed to take that into consideration based on what the FCC says.
Yeah, so that statute that was up on the screen specifically says that that's one thing we're not allowed to consider.
So we're not allowed to consider the quote-unquote radiation?
That's correct. And that's a federal statute. It completely removes our authority on that specific issue of radiation and health impacts of the tower.
And that's just because the EPA and the FCC have worked together to promulgate their regulations regarding what is acceptable, bandwidth, radiation, whatever there is coming from those, because there's a variety of different things. And so, I would say that those rules and regulations have changed over the years, and so we're dealing with what we're dealing with now, whereas the old ones were dealing with those old regulations. And so, together, those two federal agencies have come up with what the threshold is that can be acceptable in order to get a permit to even construct one of these things and use them. And so we as state and local government can't replace our judgment that is not based on the amount of research and things that have gone into promulgating the federal rules. If the federal government, through the FCC, says that that is an acceptable tower there because it falls within their regulation parameters.
Okay, any other questions?
I have a question. On the full site plan, not the zoom in, what is the area on the board to the right of it with the hash marks? Is that wetlands?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. And they do meet the distance from the wetlands right here. This is from their landscaping buffer to the wetlands. They have provided staff a delineation, was reviewed and accepted by our natural resources planner, and modified their site plan. 'Cause originally, when they submitted the site plan, their tower and landscaping buffers were closer into the wetlands buffer, and they have adjusted so it would be completely outside the 30-foot non-disturbed wetland buffer.
Okay. And we're approving the entire lot for the site plan where nothing else is being built or used at all?
So you are approving the commission site plan that will take place in this 100 by 80 leased area of that parcel.
So has it been subdivided out?
No, there's no need for a subdivision in here.
Okay.
If they do anything else to the site, if it requires site plan approval, it would come back to us.
That's right.
And I think if they were purchasing that, then they would have to try to subdivide the land, to subdivide that parcel out, and then they, but they're just leasing it.
Yes.
Okay, so the rest of the land can be developed, can have,
And as he corrected me, it's an easement, not a lease, from the property owner, Mr. Lazary, to T-Mobile, or Vertical Bridge in this case.
Any other questions?
no, thanks.
Okay. Anything else? I'm trying to get us to a point of not rushing us, but if no other questions, I'm going to entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the vertical bridge site plan with the staff conditions.
Okay, Ms. Burnett has made a motion to approve with site staff conditions. Do I have a second on the motion?
Second.
I heard Mr. Bias. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Was there one? Okay. Motion carries. All right, this time we're going to open the public hearing for case number TA 23-3, which is our amendment to the Baldwin County zoning ordinance to add District 14 zoning map in the local provisions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I know last I checked, we did have a couple folks signed up in opposition on this, so just kind of a heads up on that. This is our staff report for TA 23-3. This is for the new Planning District 14. I'm going to move through this pretty quickly because we've seen so many of these local amendments. We've kind of streamlined this presentation, hopefully. So we do manage 6 different regulatory documents in our department. The zoning ordinance is one of those, so that's what we're looking at amending today. We're going to talk about the process timeline, the common local provisions, the newer modified local provisions and priorities, the map, a couple full ordinance changes that will come with this, and then staff recommendation, and then we'll have our public hearing. Okay, so this is a citizen-driven process to become zoned in Baldwin County. It's very unique. About 60% of the county is still unzoned, and citizens who wish to have zoning can initiate the citizen-driven process to bring that about. The referendum process is set in law, and then once the vote takes place and it's in the affirmative, advisory committee is established to go through and help staff formulate a zoning ordinance and a zoning map for the new district. Here's a timeline of what took place. The first advisory committee was on July 20th, 2023. The last one was on August 31st, 2023. The first one was on July 18th. I was like, that's not enough time. And there was a unanimous recommendation of approval for what we're about to show you today. That brings us to our meeting today, October 5th, where you will make a recommendation to the Planning Commission, one way or the other, and then our recommendation to the County Commission, and then the County Commission will have a final review and approval. There is a moratorium in place right now that will terminate on December 4th, so that's kind of the deadline we're working against to have this in place prior to that time. Okay, so common local provisions. This is where I saved this all a bunch of time, this time because I'll read through these. You had solid waste and trash management, landscape buffers for major projects abutting primary roads, special landscape buffers for intense major projects abutting public roads, wetlands to be set aside in common areas, stream buffers, special parking requirements to reduce impacts to impervious areas, commercial building facade requirements, high-value native trees, traffic study requirements, good neighbor stormwater policies, public safety access road in 1 or 2 family residential developments, and incentivizing certain planned residential developments. All of these are almost verbatim. They're substantively verbatim to what we've approved recently in other districts for these local provisions. There's a couple things that I'm going to highlight where it's slightly different. The full zoning ordinance and everything has been in the public folder for viewing as well, but I'll highlight some of those different areas. So new or modified local provisions. One thing, we added an additional provision to the traffic study requirement. When a traffic study is required, in addition to intersections identified by the county engineer's designee, the applicant shall, at a minimum, study the first intersection of a collector or higher and arterial in each feasible travel direction within 3 miles of a proposed development's access points to the maintained road system. You know, we do a scoping meeting. I say we, the highway department and the permitting department of the highway department, they're actually going to be merged into our department here in the next couple months. But they do a scoping meeting with any type of new subdivision, and in that meeting they say, here's the intersections we want you to look at. Well, this is essentially to just create cast the net that says, here's the minimum. For sure, we want to make sure this gets studied. And a couple questions came in via email. I'll address both of those real quickly. The first one was about using the term county engineer's designee, and a good question was raised about that. Ms. Burnett actually asked that. We'll look into that. I think we use this language because it's generally the way it's used throughout the ordinance, but we're gonna take a look at that. The second thing was why just the first intersection, I think not additional intersections, or why stop at the first. Correct me if I misstate your feedback on this. And the thought being that once you've reached the first arterial, which arterials are like 59, they're the main traffic movers. But once you've reached an arterial, there's a good chance you're going to have a significant enough dispersion that going to a second arterial after that is almost never going to be necessary. Now, we're not removing the county engineer's discretion to make them study a second intersection past there, but we are saying, we're kind of drawing a line in the sand that you've got to at least study this one, almost removing the engineer's discretion to not make them study at least that one, if that makes sense. So I think this one's a good little change that may get incorporated into the subdivision regulations at some point in the future. There was a small change to the animal husbandry language. I don't want to beat this to death or anything like that, but just some clarification about how this intertwined with single-family residential districts that are less than 3 acres and base community zoning less than 3 acres, and how that applied to those. But otherwise, the actual ratios that we applied are the same that have been adopted in other districts. Special allowance for duplexes. So this is a pretty big change, but I think it's a neat change. I'll say that, but it is different. And essentially the committee said, you know what, this is a rural area. We're not trying to take away housing options or housing opportunities or anything like that. And we think that if someone has a 1 acre lot and they want to put a duplex on that, we're okay with that. You know, just a single duplex by itself. Now, you already would be allowed to do a single family residence and an accessory dwelling. So they're saying, why not just let someone do a duplex if they want to on a larger lot? I don't know how often this will be taken advantage of, but this does propose to give them that opportunity. Activity nodes, these are common in all new districts as well. I'll use the map to explain these, but this essentially requires the clustering of certain higher intensity zonings and uses at certain intersections. So you can see this circle here, and I should have called out the intersection, but I believe this is intersection of County Road 49 and 104. That RSF3 will only be allowed, it can only be sought, applied for within this circle shown here. RSF4 can only be sought in this circle shown here. B3 can only be sought in the circles shown here and here. That other intersection that I just added is County Road 32 and County Road 9. And then B4 can only be sought in this intersection here. Other than those areas, those zonings cannot be sought in those. And there were other zonings listed in that table, including certain multifamily and things of that nature. Now, it's important to remember that this doesn't lock this in forever into the future. Zoning ordinances are designed to evolve and change over time, so there may come a time in the future where these can be expanded, or but that time will determine that. A couple small provisions. I'm not even going to go over these. If you have questions, happy to discuss them, but they're both addressing some unique developments that were already underway, just that aren't easily handled by the zoning ordinances. So just to kind of bake in that approval, that's in the draft resolution itself. Here's the map. It's a long district. It's also a very large district, so I had to split it in two, but that map, the full map's available online for anybody to look at. I want to talk about two property-specific requests, one that came in yesterday. So one's brand new, but this one's been the one that has been a little bit controversial. This is property owned by Mr. and Mrs. Fiddler. They own a large swath of acreage starting at this corner and to the northwest. Initially, they had requested 2 acres of B2 property at this location. And their purpose was, or at least it had been said at a meeting, and I think even maybe on Facebook by someone at some point, that possibly for a Dollar General there. And understandably, the community was like, well, the reason we wanted zoning was to just not let a Dollar General just come in out the gate. You know, we're supposed to have a public hearing, there's supposed to be a process. And they brought up a lot of great arguments or thoughts on that. Staff, during the advisory committee process, recommended possibly a limited business. It's a rarely used district, a relatively newer district in the county. I think it came into being, 5 or 6 years ago, was added to the zoning ordinance. And it allows very, very light commercial uses, and it also allows commercial uses that are kind of mixed with residential uses. So if they wanted to put some type of building that had a coffee shop on the first floor and a residence on the second floor, limited business accommodates that type of business. It's much lighter type uses. Immediately across the street, the resident there, the owner there requested limited business, or he actually requested B2 as well, and the committee gave him limited business in that situation. We have talked to the Fiddlers. We've talked to a number of, I'm not going to pretend to say that we've talked to the whole community. We tried to reach out to those who we had contact information who had expressed concern, and there seemed to be a general consensus that folks were more comfortable with limited business at that intersection, knowing that most likely it also would have to come back to you for some type of commission site plan approval, depending on what was actually proposed at that location in the future. So staff's recommendation is actually to change that from B2 to limited business on the map. And unless there's something that changes, we're just know that that's built into our staff recommendation. Okay, the next thing was the 2 properties highlighted here. That's actually 2 parcels. Those are currently zoned RSF2. They requested to go to base community zoning. Again, this is a down zoning. This would reduce the size of lots they could subdivide this in the future. So generally, we're not going to oppose them going for a down zoning in a situation like this. So again, staff would recommend approval on this, but we welcome feedback from the commission. Okay, full ordinance changes. This is a new change in base community zoning. We're getting more and more of that. We want to change it to say you can subdivide base community zoning as long as you meet the minimum lot size of RSFE, which is 80,000 square feet or almost 2 acres. And the thought is, we don't want to we don't want to force people to come and try and request a higher intensity zoning if they would be happy with a 2-acre zoning RSFE to accomplish some type of subdivision. This is meant to try and avoid unnecessary cases coming in front of us, and a general consensus that folks think 2-acre lots are pretty good for rural areas if folks wanted to try and do something like that. A couple other full ordinance changes. We're adding BCZ to the table of permitted uses, some clarifications about how conditional uses or permitted uses change to conditional uses when certain criteria are met. All right, staff recommendation, it's on the screen. We recommend approval. And the next thing would be the public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, first off, does anybody have any questions for Matthew?
Mr. Chairman, Matthew, going back to the first change recommendation on page 65, dealing with how was the 3 miles determined? That seems a little excessive in terms of distance from point A to the first traffic light.
Are you talking about the activity node table?
No, the traffic study requirements.
Oh, okay. So let me think about this for a second. I believe we borrowed the 3 miles from something that the state of Florida may have. And remember, it's the nearest within 3 miles. And honestly, we actually came up with the provision, and then we looked at a complaint that we had, and the Tealwood subdivision, remember, which is a very large subdivision, we did not make that applicant study the intersection of 32 and County Road 9. And some of the citizens said, well, hey, a lot of that traffic is going to have to get to that intersection, even though it's 2 miles, more than 2 miles away. Well, the 3 miles would have captured that, and it's in the intersection of, that'd be the first intersection of an arterial and at that point. And so had we had this provision in place, it would have ensured that it had captured that. Once you get beyond 3 miles, it gets harder to make a case that an intersection is being impacted by a specific development.
So you all are comfortable with the 3 miles?
We are, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Matthew, on the definition of the activity nodes, what happens when a property straddles that node boundary?
Great question. So if a property straddles the boundary, they can request that zoning that's allowed for up to 500 additional feet beyond that radius.
Matthew, if some of the concerns were over the limited business, do you have, and I know you may not have it at your disposal, what all is included in limited business?
I don't have it all in front of me, but to give you an example, a standard Dollar General would not I don't think there's a Dollar General in Baldwin County that's less than 8,000 square feet. The default square footage for anything in limited business is 4,000 square feet. They can go up to 8,000 feet with special public hearings and everything like that, but it also doesn't allow a gas station. It allows a neighborhood convenience store, which sometimes can be confusing, but that's a small convenience store, thank you, Fabia, with no pumps or anything. But here's the other examples: antique store, apparel or accessory store, an art supply store, a bakery, a cafe, a deli, an ice cream parlor, a music store. To be honest, we think that something like a very small, almost like hobby type coffee shop or deli is probably all that corner is going to be able to support economically for a long time into the future. And so we feel like limited business would allow them to do something very limited like that, but not open up some type of unnecessary door for something that's, even if everything gets built out like the subdivisions that were approved prior to zoning, we think it will still limit it to something that maybe could be supported.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Okay. Well, I'm going to go to our public hearing then, or those that have signed up. First, I have Scott Carrier.
Commission members, my name is Scott Carrier. I reside at 13890 White Road.
which is directly across the street from the first amendment to the zoning map at Bohemian Hall and County Road 48. That property has been unzoned and has been agricultural, having livestock for over 20 years that we are aware of since we've been in that location. I know in the Baldwin County Master Plan titled Our Vision, A Citizen's Guide to Growth, in zoned areas of Baldwin County, you have 6 core themes as it relates to this property. We believe that core number 1 being promote the protection of agricultural lands in rural communities, and core number 6, maintain the character of our communities and quality of life apply to this area. This area is what we consider spot zoning. As a professional myself working in this area, spot zoning is frowned upon in several jurisdictions. I do not know about this jurisdiction, but this area, spot zoning the way it is, does not complement, nor does it agree with the surrounding properties that are all residential. It does not better conform to the current master plan of the county, and it's really, like I said, discouraged in most jurisdictions. It further does not conform to the current or past use of the property, again being agricultural, cattle, farmland. Based on the approved future land use map, this area was designated as rural, agricultural, or low-impact development potential. I believe that the zoning of this parcel, either B2, B1, or even limited business, would not complement this designation or the neighborhoods that surround it, even after they're fully built out. The intersection in question, it's not a major road intersection. One of the roads at the intersection is not fully improved. It's a gravel road with minor roadside ditching. The properties surrounding this parcel are residential with some agricultural land as well. As it is in the county, we have no sidewalks or for pedestrians. Roadways are narrow with small shoulders. Roadway speed limits make it prohibitive for pedestrians to walk along the roadway. Thus, any proposed business at this location is really accessible only by vehicle. In turn, this does create traffic and congestion in the roadways recently approved with the residents' subdivisions near it. We can go on about different discount stores. One of the main things additionally is that from the subject parcel location, we have discount retail 4.6 miles south at a major, or 4.6 miles east on the east side of the town of Silver Hill at a major intersection. We have retail discount 3.7 miles south at a major roadway. We have Walmart and ALDI grocery store 4.3 miles west. In addition, convenience stores, we have one that is 3.1 miles to the north,
Mr. Chairman, out of respect for the 3-minute rule, if we let it go every time someone speaks, then no one's going to respect it. You are at about 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yeah. We'll go to the next one.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. Rhonda Loresh. I may not have said your last name correct, so I apologize.
My name is Rhonda Loresh, and I live at 13525 County Road 32. I just purchased the property and closed on August 4th, and was unaware of all of this because I've traveled for 19 years on the pipeline buying a place here. My place is unzoned, and I have made huge adjustments to the property to upgrade it. We have done a lot of work there, and I feel as though I'm grandfathered in, and my intentions were is it to be my residence and for my family as well, along the lines of putting their 10 campers in there or whatnot with the proper electric, sewer, water, and the things that need to go into place to have something like that for my family to reside there or visit there, however they may see it. I'm not doing it to profit. I'm not doing it to sell or break up any of the property. It's 3 acres. And that is my intentions, and that's what I would like to do, because it is unzoned, and I feel that I have the right, as buying it, to keep it that way, or do what needs to be done, permits and all, to get it done the proper way that you asked it to be done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Stacy Turner?
Hello, my name is Stacy Turner. I am Rhonda's sister, and she and I both have spent the last 2 months improving the property, bringing down trees and creating space and cleaning up the property to the extent of roughly about $160,000 to improve the land to make it more pretty so that you can actually see it and to benefit the county as it is. This county, one of the things I love about it is that it is a small town feel. It's not super commercial. And where we are mostly residences. We do have 2 gas stations on the opposite corners and a coffee shop on another corner and a Dollar General right there. Her property has been a residential unzoned property since the 60s. She purchased this property with 3.5 acres to improve the home to which she could reside in, and then build out the property further in the back so that you won't even see it from the road, to add campers with proper water, electric, and septic for the campers, solely for her family's use. She is not doing it for business or any kind of monetary value. It is simply to be a family homestead for her and her family. So we request kindly that the property be left unzoned so that we can continue building up the property as we have already to make it a family estate.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's all I had signed up to speak.
Mr. Chairman, I did fail to recognize and thank our advisory committee members who participated in this process. If you are a member of the advisory committee, go ahead and just raise your hand real quick. Marla might be the only one here from the advisory committee, but they worked really hard on this, and it is very time consuming, the amount of time that goes into this process. So thank you, Marla, and thank you for the rest of those citizens who participated. Okay, so to address the 3 cases, the last 2 speakers was a surprise to me. First time we have heard anything from them, as far as I'm aware, and if I'm misstating that, I apologize. But there is a process through this for folks to make us aware of something going on with their property, and then we can consider it. The advisory committee hears it. You're coming a little bit late in the game, but not necessarily too late. What I would recommend, the advisory committee was willing to recommend zoning of RV on one of those properties down near the corner of 9 and 32. What we could do is we could get with these folks and look to see if that's something we could feel comfortable recommending. We could even maybe call an extra meeting of the advisory committee before it goes to the county commission, and y'all could just make a recommendation knowing that you're not really going to be able to make a recommendation on that item. It is impossible to keep a property unzoned. We do this all the time. We have someone like this individual come to us all the time and request to leave their property unzoned. So it's very well established legally. They will have grandfather rights, but that grandfather right only extends to whatever they had building permits prior to the date of the zoning vote, which was now months ago. And so that's where the grandfather status is linked. Another thing to note is, even had this been unzoned, the creation of recreational vehicle park spaces, even if they're used only for family, would have been required to go through our subdivision process, which is still a very extensive process. So they might feel like this is setting them way back or something. They just hadn't talked to our department yet, because there was a substantial permitting process for them ahead, one way or the other. So I think that's the best way to handle that. Regarding the Bohemian Hall Road question, I'll flip to that slide again here. We recognize the concerns that were raised. It is true that had this request come in after zoning was established, it would be a much more difficult task for them. The birthing of a zoning district is unique. It's messy. There's no way around it. Most of the United States in areas like this is already zoned, but we're unique in that there are areas that are unzoned and then they become zoned. There are a number of parcels on here that the citizens came and requested something. The advisory committee, they're asked by the citizen for a certain zoning, and they have to decide up or down whether or not to, and there was a lot of discussion and debate about many of these properties. And so at the end of the day, you'll notice the property immediately to the south, that individual came and requested limited business, and apparently that was the historic site of the Little Chapel, what's it called? Little Hall, the Little Hall. And so there used to be gatherings there and things of that nature. So to say that there have been no non-residential activity at this corner historically is not true. So we know that it has the potential to support some. We would say that if this Planning Commission feels uncomfortable with limited business, that it be removed from both corners of the intersection and not just allowed to stay on one corner. We kind of feel like limited business is a pretty good compromise. A number of the folks who had major concerns and spoke to the advisory committee, they're not here tonight because they felt like it satisfied their concerns. So that's kind of where it stands. And it's not an easy decision.
Okay. All right, any questions for staff?
Respectfully, sir, we both have time left on our clocks for 3 minutes, and we would both like to address his statement.
No, I think we've, my suggestion is that you contact the staff and get with them after the meeting sometime during the week and discuss what your options are. So I don't think this group's going to take any action on that until you've done that because it's coming so late in the game. So I would suggest contacting them and finding out what you can do before this gets to the county commission.
And they're not approving anything tonight. They're just making a recommendation. So in the next 6 weeks, we can try and resolve y'all's issue before this zoning gets finalized before the county commission. And we'll have to head back up to here now.
All right. Any questions? So the options we have is to approve it as staff is presented, or if you, based on public comments, if you feel a need to change or want to make a change to that, I guess specifically the one that's really the object of discussion is the LB. So if you want to approve it with a recommendation that be changed, then that needs to be included in your motion. Recognizing this is a recommendation of the county commission. So those are the options. Or if there are any other options, anything that you need to discuss on these other items, we need to certainly get those on the floor first so we can discuss it before we make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question. The property that these ladies referenced, can we have some idea of where it is on the map?
So they said it's right across from the Dollar General down at the intersection of County Road 32 and County Road 9. Is that do I generally have the area right? And there was a lot of discussion about properties down there. There was mobile home park zoning approved down there. There was recreational vehicle park zoning, I think, approved down there by the advisory committee. And so there's a chance that they're going to be able to, we haven't seen the property obviously, but well, I think we'll be able to work something out with them. We're just learning about it for the first time right here. So.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Matthew, can we ask the advisory committee member that's here to come up and let us know what she thinks the advisory committee would say about the 2 LBs that are in question?
Sure, absolutely.
Hi, I'm Marla Barnes. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. So your question was, what do you think the advisory committee would say about the LB? I think that they would be fine with it, again, because the property directly across the street was also granted LB so that they could do in the future like a little antique store.
Well, I think the question earlier was he was opposing it, right? Not to be LB.
That's right.
Right, this gentleman was
Okay.
against it.
But the advisory committee had already looked at everything, and they were recommending LB for those two
I
lots.
believe that they would recommend the LB, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And to clarify, Ms. Jamie, the advisory committee already has recommended B2, which is a more intense use. So that's why we felt comfortable lowering it as staff.
Matthew, do you see the LBs being a stepping stone potentially to a next level business district? Does this aid in that?
So the community would have to develop significantly, I think, for that. And with zoning in place now that limits at least haphazard development, I think that you can think of little intersections around the county where maybe you come across a little, I don't want to use the word shack because that sounds like it's run down, but a really small maybe barbecue restaurant or a coffee shop. And again, they're almost like hobby businesses. They kind of blend well into the community. That's the most I think this corner is going to support for quite a while. And it's really going to be this committee who will be the gatekeepers on whether or not something's allowed to be pushed in that's inappropriate, even if it was zoned RA. It will be this committee who's the gatekeeper, or commission, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we recommend approval to the county commission as presented by staff.
Okay, Mr. Bosch has made a motion that we recommend approval as presented by staff. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
All right, Mr. Plumer, got that one? All right, any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Let's open the public hearing now for case number Z23-34, the Strasburg property.
All right, this is a rezone request for the Strasburg property. Their request is to rezone 194 acres from M1 to RA. It's located in Planning District 4 and currently zoned M1 Light Industrial District. The subject properties are located east of Highway 225 in Bay Minette, and they are vacant. The applicant and owner is Mr. David Strasburg. He wants to rezone to Rural Agricultural District for agricultural use of those properties. Staff believes that all the factors for this rezone request have been met. Here's the zoning map and the site map showing you adjacent zoning. There is also M1 to the north as well as to the east. There's RA zoning to the south and east, and then RR, which is rural district, to the west, with industrial, residential, and agricultural uses. Here's a close-up view of the 3 parcels that are requested to be rezoned. There was no one signed up in opposition. There has been no opposition to this case, and staff recommends approval. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, any questions for staff? Okay. Do we have anyone signed up to speak as a representative for this? Or anybody that's here to represent the applicant?
I'm here to represent, sir.
Okay, why don't you come?
I have nothing to say.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for the representative? Okay. I guess we have no one signed up to speak. All right. All right, I'll entertain a motion. Okay, Mr. Plumer's made a motion to approve. Have a second?
Second.
Is that Greg? Bill, I'm sorry. All right. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll open the public hearing now for case number Z23-35, Brown property.
All right, this is a request to rezone almost 2 acres from estate residential to B1. The subject property is located in Planning District 15, just south of Milton Jones Road and west of State Highway 181. It consists of 1.98 acres, and the applicant is asking that it be rezoned to B1 Professional Business District. The applicant would like to put some type of office on the subject property. Here you can see it met all the factors except for number 3. Does it conform to the master plan? Here's the zoning map showing to the north is City of Daphne. There's also B1 and B2. To the east and west and south is zoned RSFE, estate residential. And then further east, you can see there's a mixture of M1 residential and some higher commercial zoning. Staff has recommended approval of this request, and we have not received any calls or letters against this rezoning. And I believe no one has signed up to speak.
Okay. Any questions for staff? Okay, is the applicant here or representative of the applicant? All right. Do you have anything you need to say? Does anybody have any questions for the representative here? Okay. And I'm assuming since I don't have anything, no one signed up to speak in opposition or for? All right. I'll close the public hearing. I'll entertain a motion on this one.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we recommend approval.
Okay. Mr. Seibert made the motion to approve.
Second.
This, by the way, is a recommendation to the county commission. I don't know if I said that before, but, all right. Mr. Seibert, Mr. Boyer, second the motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I'm going to open public hearing now for case number Z23-36 and the PRD 23-8 for Woodpecker Landing.
All right, sorry for the delay. This is a PRD and rezoning request for Woodpecker Landing. Woodpecker is a 15-lot PRD site plan application. This property is located in Planning District 12, currently zoned RA. The property location is south of County Road 54 and west of Hill Road. The current use is vacant, and the approximate acreage is 11.62 acres. The applicant's proposing the request from rezoning from RA to RSF1. The proposed density is 0.7 units per acre, and the smallest lot is proposed at 5,200 square feet, and the largest lot is 12,434 square feet. Here is your locator map and your site map. Images of the subject property and the surrounding areas. Here's the requirements for the proposed, for the required for RSF1, which is the proposed. You see here on the side, the proposed setbacks are being reduced to the front as 20 feet, the side 7.5 feet, the side streets to 15 feet, and the rear yard they'll maintain at 30 feet. Here's a copy of your proposed site plan, open space requirements. I zoomed in here on the proposed amenities. We have discussed with the applicant, and I'll comment further down, but we're making a condition where they will be providing a 25-foot buffer screening all around the rear yard, and as well as a 15 feet natural buffer along the entrance on the east and west side. And they will also update the site plan to actually show the proposed walking trails that they have. Here's some images of the proposed dwellings that they plan on building. Staff feels that the request change to RSF1 is compatible with the surrounding uses. Zoning with Planning District 12 was adopted in November 7 of 2006, and it has not changed much since then. You can see it in the map down below here. Staff has compared this request with the master plan and feel that it is compatible. We're unaware of any planned public improvements. Traffic is not required for a PRD application, and we don't anticipate it being required once they come for the subdivision development, since it's only 15 lots. But that will be at the discretion of the permit engineer once we do receive that application for review. The surrounding land use areas are residential and agricultural, and a rezoning to RSF1 is consistent with the development patterns of the area. There were no agency comments other than from Development Review Planner stating that a subdivision application will be required as the next step if this PRD and zoning change is approved. Staff's recommendation from the zoning change from RA to RSF1 is being recommended for approval. And staff also recommends approval of the PRD with the following conditions: that they show the 25 feet natural buffer on the rear yard, as well as the natural, a 15-foot natural landscaping buffer along the entrance, and show the walking trails on the site plan. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions for staff?
I have one about parking. Is each lot going to have its own parking and driveway?
Yes, ma'am.
And then there's also overflow on the site plan?
Yes. And I will zoom in here.
It kind of looks like there's a
Right here.
landscape between the road and the houses, and I didn't see any access points to get
There's
to the
some
homes.
overflow parking back here by the common area 4, next to lot 11.
And each lot will have one parking space?
The applicant may be here and can
Okay.
answer if it'll just be one car or.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions?
So when they apply for their PRD, will they have to ask for a variance for the 2 lots that are not wide enough?
No, that's why they're asking for the PRD, because the PRD allows for reduced lot sizes and
Right.
setbacks. That takes care of them not meeting, let's say, the requirements of RSF1 from the zoning ordinance.
Right. But there were 2 lots there that were narrow, that required a 50-foot at the building setback line?
Because it is a PRD, they're having reduced building setback as well as side setbacks, rear setbacks, and front setbacks.
Any other questions?
Are there going to be, are these lots being sold as lots, or are they being sold with a house that is already built on them? There was some discussion at the work session about Airbnb type use. Will that be with individual owners, or will it be as a group?
That might be a question for the applicant, because right now we're only considering the PRD. We don't actually have a preliminary plat application in front of us for review stating that these lots will be considered to be sold.
Okay, any other questions? All right. If not, then is the applicant or his representative here?
Oh, and I did wanted to state that there has been sign up on oppositions.
Okay. Yeah, I have that. Are you the applicant or the representative?
I'm a representative.
Okay.
Developer. So I'm here to answer any of the questions y'all wanted to know about Airbnb or whether he was selling them or not. Right now, the plans are not to actually sell the individual lots, but we'd like to plat it for that to be a future option for him. But this is definitely going to be short-term rental. He is planning on building all homes on site and hiring a property manager to manage the whole facility.
Does that make any difference to us? I mean,
So-
given the rezoning and the PRD that's before us.
Yeah, so currently, we do not regulate short-term rentals in any zoned areas of Baldwin County. Whether you rent your property for 6 months or 6 days, as long as the use of the dwelling is residential. The exception would be if someone started regulating or renting rooms out under separate leases to different parties, then we would regulate that as a lodging house or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. All right, any questions for the representative? Thank you, ma'am.
Question on the parking.
Yes.
Is each lot going to have their own parking?
So each lot is going to have 2 parking spaces.
Thank
Okay.
you.
And Ms. Strategier, one thing that we'll probably ask the applicant to do before it goes to the commission is to actually show the building sites and driveways on here. Because it is a site plan, really, they should show those, so that way we know where these buildings will be. And then that also helps lock down a little bit more of the type of buildings that will go on the site. So we'll make sure that that's on there for the county commission. Those are the type of questions that would help answer. Thank you.
Okay, I have Brandon Jones signed up.
I can't hold it. That'd be good. Just leave it there. Yeah, I'm Philip Markham. He's Brendan Jones.
Yes. Philip Markham. is the-
Yeah. I currently reside at 16352 County Road 54. And when I bought my lot back 24 years ago, Benchmark had all that property back behind my house. And when I was working with them, they told me that the reason they couldn't make a develop that property right behind my house was because of flooding issues and drainage issues for water overflow. And every time we get a heavy down rainfall, parts of 54 has to be shut down because of the water drainage. And it prevents us from driving up and down 54. That was my only question about the development right there, because Bridgeport said that they weren't going to add a sewage line that drains off the water. Said that y'all required the upgraded sewer drainage. That's the first time I've ever done this. I was just questioning about the overflow.
Okay, is that it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just to understand the process, the zoning and PRD tonight, they will be required to come back with a preliminary plat to address their drainage. So they'll have to present that to the county and with detailed information how they will handle drainage and all the utility plans. So this by no means tonight is approving them to go to construct. There's another step they've got to go, actually a couple more steps, because they've got to go to the county commission to get this approved that we're talking about. But then they'll have to start over with their construction plans and subdivision plats. So there'll be more work to come, and there'll be other hearings on it. And it'll be addressed then as far as drainage goes. Does that cover it? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, that's all we had signed up on this one. All right, well then, I don't have you, but come on up. Give us your name and
Hello, my name is Vanessa Elias, and I own the property immediately to the east of this property.
Okay.
It's hard for me to tell by that map which way that subdivision sits, because the property is actually not a rectangle. It has two extensions. It's more like a C. I am the property immediately to the other side. In any case, the gentleman made a good point about the drainage. There's a ditch that runs north-south. That would be the entire long side of that C, and hopefully that will be addressed. As far as the consistency and the size of the lots to my east are all 80 by 100 feet. The lots to the north are 100 by 200 feet. So the lots proposed in this subdivision are significantly smaller, and maybe there should be a consideration for less lots. Also, the people, I have lots of neighbors north and east, and it seems like they have no qualms about walking past the no trespassing signs onto my property, and I have a 6-foot fence with barbed wire on the top, and I would request that part of the plan be to have a fence that runs the length of his property where the subdivision sits, as a privacy fence to protect my property, which is agriculture. And aside from that, I think the other questions have been addressed. Thank you.
okay. Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else? All right. Well, I asked for you earlier, man.
Randy Arp with Stifler Engineering. I'm the engineer on the project. There's a couple of things that I think you talked about site plans. We were trying to keep the wooded feel to the lots. So trying to fit houses so we get the tree survey finished is going to be a little awkward. But the tree survey is ordered, so yeah, trying to fit a specific house. I made sure when we did it, we could fit the small single family on each lot. So at the minimum, we'll have that cottage. But we're planning on small cottages, trying to keep the trees on the lots.
Okay.
And the only other thing was that 15-foot buffer on the entrance road. That the entrance was cleared when they did the original subdivision. They planted trees along the entrance, but it's not natural. I mean, it's cleared with a few trees on the entrance. And I was really planning on putting my drainage down the side where the ditch goes naturally, which is the east side of that entrance. And if we do the buffer, that'll have to be piped. It's not unstoppable, but it's a lot of expense. Any other questions, or?
I have a question. Since this is short-term rental, will the owner be on the site in the area?
The owner owns the property immediately south. He's adjacent to it. And he bought this kind of as a buffer, and then the original thought was do an RV park, and staff kind of pushed us away from that towards the PRD, so, and we're happy with it as far as getting, what he wanted to do was some rental income. So, does that make sense?
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, sir. All right, anyone else? I'm gonna close the public hearing. Any other questions? Staff have any other comments?
No, no, thank you.
Do you prefer that we vote on these separately or together?
I think the last time we had a PRD zoning change, we took separate votes,
All right.
so.
Let's deal with the zoning first. This will be a recommendation of the county commission. Go from RA to RSF1.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend to the county commission approval of this zoning change.
Okay, Mr. Billiard's made a motion that we recommend approval to the county commission. Have a second?
Seconded.
Mr. Seibert seconded the motion. Any questions, comments on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, so the rezoning has been recommended for approval. What about the PRD?
Move the PRD be included as approved.
With conditions?
I beg your pardon?
With staff conditions?
Yes, yes, with staff conditions, I'm sorry.
And we're going to add showing the parking as a condition before it moves on.
I can't add it here, but I've took note to it.
Okay. So, Bill, you're making a motion to recommend to county commission approval, subject to staff conditions with the addition of the parking being shown. All right, do I have a second? All right, Ms. Burnett, second the motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, before we go into subdivision cases, do we need to take a break? Yes, we do. All right, we'll take about a 5-minute break.
Do you have the list?
What's that?
I don't have the link for that one anymore.
Yeah.
To see if any opposition in my cases.
No, what 5 minutes, but open up your case. Which one's yours?
Why would you need it? I've got the HCA.
Well, Glenn, what do you think?
So yours gets white, so that way it turns.
Pick up with our subdivision cases. All right, this time I'm going to open the public hearing for case number HCA 23-3 and HCA 23-5 Synergy Homes.
All right, so they're requesting highway construction setbacks appeals for two different sites that are located on Highway 55, which is a minor arterial, and this just shows you the map, and here are the properties to the north and to the south. They're both on Alabama Avenue. So you can see this is the original plat that was recorded back in '07, and they only had a 20-foot setback at that time, and didn't account for highway construction setback then. And so a number of houses have already been built here because the town of Silver Hill permitted those. The house proposed now will be 10 feet farther from the road than the ones that are previously existing. If you look here, like these are the ones that have already been approved. This is the most recent one that is 10 feet back, and so the new ones will be like this one. So they'll be approximately 75 feet from the center line as opposed to 100. And so we are recommending approval, again, because they are farther than the previously built ones that are existing.
Okay. Any questions for staff?
Both of the residential roads appear to dead end at a larger parcel.
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
I'm sorry, I was looking at both these roads, but this particular road where the two lots are, it deads in to a larger parcel. Would you ever need this property for deceleration lanes or anything like that if this parcel is ever developed?
I would think since there already has all along it, I can't imagine that it would dramatically change the way that intersection is used.
And I think the important thing there is if decel lanes are required for that development to occur, well, they're going to have to find a way to get them, which might mean purchasing those houses. And if they can't, then they're not going to be able to develop it.
But we have a highway setback lane to protect not having to buy those houses at the time that improvements are necessary.
Well, I think though that is, it's envisioning more of like a future widening project.
Okay.
You know, and in this case, we rely heavily on the county highway department, and then they felt like it wasn't going to be an issue for this road.
And I should point out, on this slide, it says that they have no objections to this request. So we did ask the highway department first, and they, because there's so many things already existing, we're not opposed to this.
And I do want to say, we do not like this situation. A year ago, you all might remember, we put this builder through the ringer. But it's an old, complicated subdivision. Mm-hmm. We are very cautious about approving highway construction setbacks. This one's almost like it's too far gone for us to do much more, or to do much on it at this point, because there are already so many houses that are violating it. That, if the road's ever improved, it's going to have to be improved on the other side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
How did this occur? Who's responsible for these two houses seeming to be sort of out of plumb, if you will, with the rest of the neighborhood?
Well, if you look at the old, this is the recorded subdivision plat, it showed a 20-foot setback. Like I said, at that time, I guess they didn't account for highway construction setbacks. So when Silver Hill issued the building permits for all of those, I think they're like 7 that are already built, they were looking at that instead of actually at the highway construction setback. And so they were just basing it on the plat, which, you know, if you look here, it was shown, they built it as shown. And so now they've put a 30-foot setback from that property line instead of 20, so it's slightly better.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. I don't think I have anyone signed up. So I'll entertain,
We're here, but it wasn't in here for us to look. If you have any questions for
Okay,
There's no public hearing for highway construction setback appeals, so we don't have a sign
all
off.
right, so there we go. So I'll entertain a motion, unless you have any other questions.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve these two cases.
All right, Mr. Bias has made a motion to approve both of the cases. Do I have a second? Second. Mr. Seibert, second the motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
No.
One opposed, all right? All right, we're going to open the public hearing now for case number PUD 23-10, Ricky Rollins RV Park.
All right, Commissioners, this is a request for a Ricky Rawlings RV Park. It's a 13-site RV park. This property is located on Planning District 13. Zoning has not been adopted in this district. The location of this property is on the south side of Patterson Road and west of the Interstate Highway 10. The total acreage of this property is 3 acres, and the total number of sites proposed is 13. Here is a layout of your site plan and a little bit of an enlarged image, just showing there are existing mobile homes on, I think it's about 6, that will be removed and replaced where new RV units will be able to be placed. Patterson Road is being proposed to be required to be widened to 24 feet. And in red here, I have circled the proposed drainage detention ponds, as well as the dumpster. Here is your aerial imaging, copy of our drainage report, utility letters. There is an active code case violation on this property for the multiple dwellings, the existing mobile homes without an approved planned unit development site plan. So should this application be approved, this should satisfy and cure the outstanding violation. Staff is recommending approval with the conditions that they do remove the existing mobile homes and no mixed use of RV mobile homes will be allowed, and the following general conditions. And the widening the road. That's good. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for staff?
Are there any ancillary facilities there, a bathhouse, laundry, anything for RV? I'm assuming these will be temporary slots for RVs coming into the area.
It is unzoned district, so he has not shown any amenities, such as a bathhouse, swimming pool, the usual that you're used to seeing in larger sites.
One other quick question. If this were denied, what would happen to this notice of violation?
It would remain until the existing units, how many ever there are removed totally or reduced to 2.
Any other questions for staff?
I have one. So the violation notice was issued over a year ago in August of 2022. And they were asked to remove everything but 2, and they haven't done that in a year.
They have been working with our department. They had to submit a sketch plan and reached out to us where it has landed us here today. So they haven't just gone completely silent. They have been making attempts to bring their park into compliance now with the proposed RV park application.
Thank you, Fabia.
Yes, ma'am.
So probably the Easy Living Road, that's the private road, is that correct? On site?
Yes, let me get back in here.
Ms. Burnett?
Just a question, kind of a administrative question. Since there are no facilities, a bathhouse or anything like that, do you limit the kind of RVs that are allowed to locate here?
That's a good question, might be.
Or
Not in an unzoned area.
Okay.
So if it's, because technically, for instance, you know, if they did a 5-lot residential subdivision here, and I know we're getting into the weeds, but they could put 2 RVs on each space with very little oversight. So
I have a question on septic. We're saying this is going to, I guess this whole total footprint is on 3 acres.
That's right.
Is there a septic layout for these 13 homes here?
He did submit a utility plan. I don't have the utility plan shown here, but he did also provide us with the permits for the septic tanks. They are already there.
It's more about a layout with, where is it going to be on this site? Or how does it fit into this layout with the field lines for these 13
So I'm gonna,
slots?
this is their drainage, their proposed drainage, but you can still see the septics and the field lines here. So these long rectangles back here are their septic and their septic field lines. This area is right here. And then there's another down here.
Okay.
So it might be a little difficult to see, I apologize, but if you can kind of just focus.
Those field lines are the blue and purple lines that.
This is the drainage report, so this is like their drainage, pre and post, proposed.
But they'll have like a collection basin and then field lines or some type of a septic field that, I mean, I think that we need to look at some of those details before we say yes to.
I think the applicant's representative here, we'll have him come up, maybe can address some of that. But I think what you're saying, Bobby, there's existing systems already in place.
Yes.
With the mobile homes that are there that they'll be using, but he can address if they got to do something else.
And the county health department will permit that.
Exactly.
He's already issued the permits, and we have a copy of those permits for all the proposed RVs.
All right, any other questions for staff? Because I have one for the engineer once he gets up here. Anybody else? Chris or the applicant, either one want to?
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. So to just to clarify a couple things, the mobile homes have been removed from the site because of the notice of violation. So those are gone now, and they're not going to be put back on the property because it's going to be used as an RV park, a planned RV park. And as far as the septic systems go, as soon as he built the new RV spaces, the health department and another engineer designed the septic systems for the additional units and also looked at the units that were in effect. And all of the units have a working and permitted septic system from the health department. It's tight, but everything meets their laws and rules and regulations.
Chris, on the just traffic patterns, I noticed that the dumpster's at the very end. How does he get out when he goes down and gets that? How does he back? Does he have to back all the way out? How does he turn around and get out of it?
So at the end of lot 13 on the south side.
One little turnaround?
Yeah, there's a place where he can pull forward and back into that turnaround and then get out.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for the applicant or his representative?
This may be just a minor question. I noticed that there's only the one dumpster site rather. If I was in lot 1, that would be quite a hike. Is there any consideration of putting in a second dumpster?
You know, if y'all feel it necessary, we can definitely comply to something like that.
It seems as a convenience.
Right, I understand.
To attract more folks. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Personally, I'd want the dumpster down at the other end, so it wasn't next to my lot.
So you don't have to smell it.
I feel bad for the guy that's in 12 down there, but.
A north breeze in the wintertime.
All right, any other questions? All right. Mr. Rollins, did you want to speak or not? You're signed up. If you want to, you're welcome to. All right. All right, that's all. Is there anybody that failed to sign up or is not showing up that wish to speak on this one? All right, I'm closing the public hearing. Any other questions? Ms. Waters, you got anything else you need to add?
No, sir.
All right, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve Ricky Rollins RV Park subject to staff conditions.
Mr. Cyrus made a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Fletcher seconded the motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're going to open the public hearing now for case number PUD 23-14, Emerald Coast Resort.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be recusing myself in the next two cases.
Okay? So Mr. Bias is recusing himself on this one, and then we'll remember to do it on the second one. All right.
All right, this request is for Emerald Coast Resort, a 125 RV units. This subject property is located in Planning District 34. Zoning has not been implemented. The total property areas is approximately 33 acres. The number of sites requested is 125. This property is located on the east side of County Road 65 and north of Dairy Lane. Move on here. Here's a copy of the proposed site plan. I have enlarged here so that you see the section here in green on the left is a future expansion, not part of this development at this moment. And to the right here, the applicant has made a note. We've asked him to make a note that all existing trees along the property lines will be preserved during the development, so it maintains a buffer between this property owners and the proposed park. Here's a enlarged imagery of your amenities. They're proposing a bathhouse, a swimming pool, dumpsters, a laundry room, an office, and you also have your typical lot details here, as well as imagery showing the widening of the entrance. Here is your aerial map, drainage report. The applicant has chosen to show a 50-foot non-disturbed wetland buffer, but again, this area is not part of the proposed development at this point. This will be part of their future expansion. Copy of their utilities. Letter from the respective fire departments. And staff is recommending approval with the following conditions: that County Road 65 may be required to be widened to 24 foot, and a turning lane may be required to be installed pending review, further review by the Baldwin County Highway Department, and the following general conditions. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions for staff?
So the future development is the storage area and?
Yes, RV and boat storage, that's how they have it listed.
Is that pickleball courts or something there?
Pickleball courts?
I don't know what I'm looking at.
Don't think they're proposing any of that.
Okay.
Yes. Swimming pool, yes.
Any other questions? Staff? Okay. Mr. Davis, representing the applicant.
Hey, good evening. Good evening. I'm here to answer any questions you may have on the development.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for the engineer?
Mr. Davis, again, my simple question. You've got 100 and plus slots here, and you've got one dumpster.
Yeah. I believe you make a good point, and we will definitely consider that, and we'll get with the trash company as well.
Okay, I mean, it would, that would overflow pretty quickly.
Yes, sir.
Even
Yes,
if our chairman's lot was right there beside it.
Understand.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I would concur with you on that one, Bill. All right, any other questions for the engineer?
So the future development, that's open air storage or under, is it under a warehouse? What's going on there?
Yes, sir. That would be open air storage in the upper left corner, you see. And that would be, yeah, and then below that is mini storage. But it'll be the open air storage would be the first.
Okay, so
to come.
open air storage up top here, and then down below is like a storage unit facility?
Yes, sir, and that's conceptual right now, so.
Okay. Thank you.
I guess my question maybe for staff is, you know, we're on a 30-acre parcel here, 33 acres, you know, and I guess I want to say how tight can we do this even in unzoned to put this RV park, I guess we look mini storage and open air storage, and I guess there's one more 5 or 10 acres to work with. It seems like we end up with a lot going on a small footprint.
Yes, sir, and I have the developer here, Mr. Yogesh Patel.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. First, thank you for your time and, hearing us.
Give us your name, I'm sorry.
My name is Yogi Patel, and I'm representing the developer.
Okay.
And to answer your question, I mean, if you notice where we have the RV park situated, Mr. Patel, he envisions, you know, that being tucked away so it's not visibly seen from the roadway, and as well as we want to be able to preserve the natural buffers. We'll probably shift a little bit more with some large oak trees, and then, of course, the future development with the open air storage, and then there are some open areas which I believe right now is probably more in mind would be mixed-use commercial.
Mixed-use commercial and residential.
And residential.
And I think the important thing to understand here is that the future development is not up for approval today.
Right.
They could completely change this conceptual plan. The only thing that we're actually approving today is the RV park, and they may never come back and build the rest. But if they do, they'll have to come back in front of you with a new application at that point in time.
Not for the.
Oh, that's right, not for the boat and RV storage because it's unzoned.
Yes.
So that is a good point.
I think, and based on initial meetings with the planning staff, I think the recommendation was kind of pushing it as away from the public street and kind of have, it also gives some kind of a privacy and a quiet for the RV residents as well. At the same time, it doesn't say as a face on 65 as an RV park.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I have a couple other people signed up in favor. If you do want to, you don't, rare that we have people want to speak in support, but if you want to come up and speak, I have, boy, your last names are hard. Gaurav Shapar? I probably butchered that. Do you want to speak, or you just? I have nothing to say. Okay. Thank you. And Shrivan Lunar? Thank you, sir. All right, these gentlemen signed up in support of the project, so just we'll know that for the record. That's all I have. Was there anybody that signed up I don't see on my record here? All right. I'm going to close the public hearing. Any other questions? Ms. Waters, you have anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve with staff conditions and the additional dumpster.
Okay.
All right. Ms. Stratter's made a motion to approve subject to staff conditions and adding that consideration of an additional dumpster. Okay.
I'll second that.
Mr. Pooler seconded it. All right, any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I want to make one clarification for the record, and staff, we can sort this out later. But if they're planning that storage facility on a unified site with an RV park, they will have to bring that in front of you. I don't know the details. I just didn't want the applicant to think, oh, no, they won't have to bring this back in front. We'll have to further evaluate that, but I just wanted to clarify that for the record so the applicant wasn't confused.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing now for case number PUD 23-15, Oak Place RV Park. Mr. Bias has recused himself on this item also.
All right, this is for a 32-unit RV park, and this is in, excuse me, Plan District 27, so this is unzoned, and there are 32 proposed sites, and this is on Oak Road, County Road 6, and it is immediately adjacent to Gulf Shores. It was approved previously, a couple years ago, as a 32-site manufactured home park. The only condition of approval that we have is the widening of County Road 6 to 24 feet for 300 feet in each direction, and I have the additional slides if you have any questions.
Okay, any questions for staff?
And we do have people sign up in opposition to this one.
All right, no questions for staff. All right. Chris, do you want to come up on this one? Do you need to say anything as the engineer? Okay. Anybody have any questions for the engineer?
Dumpster.
There's one.
It appears there's only one dumpster here as well, and it doesn't appear that for this many, there's no, what I'll call a clean out, septic, whatever you want to call it, for this many RVs.
As far as, yes, so we can add another dumpster down there towards the, I guess, the right side of your page, towards the end of the cul-de-sac. It'll probably serve the community better.
Does the sanitation department dictate, based on the number of units, how many dumpsters you should have? Do we know?
It all depends on how often you pick up. You know, if you pick up daily, then you can have less. If you pick up once a week, then you need more. But I've never had a health department or sanitary department dictate that to me.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Lieber?
So we approved this once before for just mobile homes?
Right, correct. And they have added amenities. Those were not on the previous one. But earlier, it was just mobile homes, and then they've added some things here
Right.
on one side.
Understood.
And there's an historic home on the property that they have marked, and it will be preserved as an office.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, sir. I have Brandon Williams.
Good evening. I'm Brandon Williams. I live at 6339 Madison Drive, directly behind this proposed RV park. I am also the president of Summerwood Homeowners Association, and we have 49 homes in our lot, our subdivision. All 49 homes are against this RV park being built. We have numerous concerns. Number one being traffic. County Road 6 is already stressed to the limit as far as traffic goes. around that west end bend. Cars come around that going 45, 55 miles an hour, and it doesn't give enough time for those cars to react to RVs turning into the RV park. There's no right-hand turn lane going into that RV park either. Whereas we have a right-hand turn lane going eastbound into our subdivision, there should be one added to that RV park if it goes through. I do understand that there is plans to widen County Road 6 at that junction, 300 feet in each direction. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yes.
So the speed limits are a big concern. Light and noise pollution is another concern for my residents and my constituents in my subdivision. We're worried about all the noise coming from the RV park and any new light added to it as we get enough light pollution from the sportsplex right across the street as well. Another thing we're worried about is the drainage system. I noticed that the drainage system has been put on the west side of that property and it flows right out to County Road 6. And when it overflows, it's going to overflow into my pond that backs up directly to my house. So those are our concerns. And we're also worried about any transient occupants coming through and causing crime rates to go up. We live in a very quiet, very peaceful neighborhood. And all 49 of those houses were bought prior to the construction of this RV park. And none of us want it there. So that's where we're at. Are there any RV restrictions going in on that? Like 10-year-old RVs, or is it just any RV can go there?
It's unzoned, so we don't have specifications for the type of RVs.
Okay. You know, and then there's also 2 RV parks within a mile in each direction of this proposed RV park, and they're never at full occupancy either. So that presents another question that I had. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, sir. Jeannie? Okay. He covered all your points? All right, thank you. And then Cliff Davis, did you want to speak?
I can respond to that.
All right, come on.
So I'd just like to say that I appreciate you guys' time, and I know you guys are tired of this project specifically, but I think this is the best move that we can make for what we're trying to do. I'll say, to address some of his concerns, for one, it was a mobile home park. Mobile home parks would have at least had, typically, each unit probably would have had at least 2 to 3 cars. Now that it's an RV park, the traffic is actually going to be less than it would have been as a mobile home park. Also, this is going to be a very high-end mobile home park. RV park. It's got individual bathhouses for each site that has laundry. They're also going to double as a tornado shelter. So, you know, it's going to be high-end. I don't think we have to worry about transient crime or anything like that. And that's pretty much what I wanted to say.
Okay, anybody have any questions for?
Mr. Davis, are these going to be for sale, or are they going to be short-term rentals, or?
They will be short-term, yep.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, was there anyone else that I don't have on my sign-up? All right, I'll close the public hearing. Any questions for staff?
I guess regarding the traffic, I guess, there wasn't a traffic study, you can't.
There were fewer than 50 lots or sites, so highway
Right.
did not require that.
Right, but there is a sharp curve there, and I do understand the concern about people coming around that corner, and so does the highway department have any issues there, or can they even look at it?
Yeah, we'll look into the speeding around that curve. I know we had an encroachment in that curve that we're working on getting moved to help with sight distance. But we'll look into the speeding and see if we can do something about that.
Thank you, because I mean, if you got an RV pulling out there, taking a left, and then there's somebody coming around that corner, it's going to be a problem. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move we approve the requested RV park with the recognition of the traffic issue and subject to a finding by the Highway Department concerning the traffic situation.
Okay, do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Is that Mr. Fletcher's?
Yep.
Okay. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're going to open the public hearing now for case number SPP 23-20 Ship Road Industrial Park. Mr. Bice is back.
Good evening. So you have before you a preliminary plat approval for Ship Road Industrial Park. I added a preamble because there's some changes that's been made since your staff report was sent to you. Excuse me. Adjacent property owners submitted a letter of concern with the impacts of commercial and industrial development adjacent to the residential lots. Staff coordinated with the applicant for revisions to mitigate the impacts of future development between the non-residential and residential lots per section 5.14F of the current subdivision regulations. The plat has been updated to reflect a combined 125-foot buffer between the non-residential and residential lots, of which 50 foot is within Common Area 4. This common area shall not be used for any purposes other than the required 50-foot permanently vegetated landscape buffer and is hereby memorialized during this meeting. So this is for a 22-lot non-residential subdivision. It is in Planning District 5, and it is unzoned. A traffic study was not required due to the lot sizes, but we have been asking that the applicant coordinate with AlDOT due to the fact that this is located near Novellis, and additional traffic will be there. And so there is concern that there's a potential southbound right-hand turn lane that may be required along Raven Road to Ship Road. So that's being coordinated by the applicant with AlDOT. There are jurisdictional wetlands that are present on site, and those wetland buffers have been shown on the plat. And Ship Road will need to be extended from the existing road through the proposed subdivision. So these are your lot layouts. Lots 13, 14, 15, I believe, have been revised. They still meet lot size requirements. And you can see the 75-foot buffer there, and then you can also see the common area that's been added. This is your vicinity map. So staff does recommend approval. One of the specific conditions that was in your staff report was a sewer letter provided by North Baldwin Utilities. That has been provided. However, they failed to list the location of the treatment facility and that they have the capacity to treat the additional sewage. So an updated letter is in the works with North Baldwin Utilities, and that will be required to be submitted to us prior to the issuance of a subdivision permit for construction. The other was that the engineer had to provide proof that they can meet ISO requirements or increase the lot size, the side setbacks to 11 foot. They have increased the lot size setbacks to 11 foot. And then there are other general conditions as applicable, and I'll answer any questions y'all may have. And I do believe there is one person signed up for opposition.
I have a question. Could you explain what a non-residential, I mean, I guess these are not lots we're going to build houses on. What is the future of these?
The future
20 lots?
intended use is to be commercial and industrial.
So these will be sold for somebody to do commercial business
Yes, sir.
on a smaller
Yes,
parcel?
sir. And it's unzoned, so we can't regulate, you know, what they do. They could have Dollar General, they could have a gas station, a restaurant, whatever.
different businesses generate different traffic, so do we monitor this as we go along? I know it's unzoned, but do we, it's under the threshold of the number of lots for a traffic study, but knowing what could happen, as it happens, do we monitor that?
Yeah, we looked at that. That was the main reason why we didn't do a traffic study at this time, because we really don't know what's going to go back there. So as each commercial lot is developed, as part of the turnout permit, they would have to submit. A traffic study would be required at that point if we think it's needed.
Okay.
Ship Road's a county road, correct?
Correct.
Okay, any other questions?
I have a question. What are the common areas for in an industrial park?
Drainage,
What's that?
specifically for drainage.
Okay.
Common area 1, 2, and 3 are for drainage. Common
Okay.
area 4 is for vegetative buffer and cannot be used for drainage purposes.
Okay. No other questions? Michelle Long?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today on the Ship Road project that's before you. My name is Michelle Long, and I'm speaking for my family along with the residents on Ship Road and the road above us, which would be Glasgow Road. We bought this property 12 years ago. We moved on this road because of the small town feel, the quiet, peace and quiet of living out of town and in a rural area. I understand that Mr. Patterson would like you to approve his project of 22 3-acre commercial lots, which is at the end of our dead-end road. We, along with the other residents, would request that you deny his application. We have families on our road. Some of these families have children. We personally drive our golf cart 2 pastures up to pick up our granddaughter. The girls that live on our road run back and forth between the front yards to each other's houses. Sometimes they'll run four-wheelers down there. My husband personally drives the zero-turn 2 pastures up to mow our daughter's yard. This is the small-town feel and safety that we and our kids have enjoyed for many years. If this project is approved, it would not be safe for these kids to act like kids anymore. There are families that own livestock on this road as well. This could potentially be dangerous and hazardous to the livestock and, if they got out, to the traffic that this would produce. There are waterways on Mr. Patterson's subject property. What is being done about drainage to protect the waterways? Will the 3-acre lots have their own source of drainage? Will there be a way to protect the water flow for the creeks that feed into the water sources? The only streetlights that are on our road are private pay, which a lot of us do not pay for that, so our road is very dark, which could give another problem. We currently have a lot of wildlife out there. My granddaughter and I personally have to stop to let the turkeys pass by. So all of the commercial in and out on our road would also be hazardous to all of the wildlife. Our road is a residential road and will not support the amount of traffic that could potentially increase if this project is approved. We live on a little 2-lane paved road. Furniture trucks have a hard time backing in our driveway and turning around. Our road will not allow 2 semi-trucks to pass each other going in and out of our road. Our road is 20 feet wide. The average semi-truck and trailer is 72 feet long, 8.5 feet wide, and 13.5 feet tall. The current speed limit is 25 miles an hour. This road is not made for commercial or industrial business. If there are 22 businesses in this project, say they're open 8 to 5, pretend they all have 3 employees. That would be 66 additional cars that go in and out of that road. We have been informed that it would be industrial, commercial. So there will be a lot of traffic of semis and everything up and down our road, which also we have families that walk up and down our road for exercise with our kids and pets as well. We would ask that you would deny this or table his application until some of these questions can be answered.
Thank you. Brian Aaron?
Mr. Chairman, Commission, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name is Brian Aaron. I live at 15011 Glasgow Lane. I wrote the letter that is in front of you in your agenda package expressing my concerns. First off, I want to say thank you to Mr. Brown and his staff and the developer for working and making concessions to provide additional buffer. But let me be clear, I don't want an asphalt plant right adjacent to my home. We moved here 22 years ago. It's all family land. As Ms. Long stated, our children go back and forth between these two. I go to church with a lot of residents who live on Ship Road. I'm not arguing the fact that he has the legal right to build this. It's unzoned. But I think it's appalling that you can go from the left end of the spectrum in terms of zoning districts, residential, and drop an asphalt plant, which could be built here in an industrial area, right next to my $400,000 home. I have a problem with that. It's appalling that we don't have better regulation in these unzoned areas. I'm not asking for it to be zoned. Zoning is a two-edged sword. We all know that. If you're zoned, you don't want unzoned, and if you're unzoned, most people don't want zoned until you find yourself in my shoes. And I ask each one of you to put yourself in my shoes. Look out your window right now at your home, in your living room. Do you want to see an asphalt plant right next to you? That could happen with me. Now, thankfully, I've been given an additional buffer. But my family members behind me, they'll still be able to see it. 50 feet is what was given as a concession, and I appreciate that. But I want you to really consider this. I mean, we are having a mixed use of the two opposite ends of the spectrum. Legally, it's allowed, but is it smart? Is it right? And I would say no, it's not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. That's all I had signed up. Was there anybody else that failed to sign up or got missed? All right. The one item that I'm always concerned about is the length of roadways. We used to be very concerned about dead-end roads. It seems like we're extending an existing dead-end road to a much longer length with no ability to turn around. That used to be an issue. Is that no longer an issue with the, I mean, this is just one, right now Ship Road is a dead-end road to this site, and now they're going to extend it further up into the site. Is that basically right? And then we got the issue if it's...
That's correct. The only difference now is it would have a cul-de-sac instead of nothing. It's only different.
And no way to get, everything has to go back through this site. I mean, go all the way back through Ship Road.
Correct.
I have a generic question about, as we're considering an industrial park here with 22 sites and this, you know, look like about a half mile from whatever you turn off of to get Raven Road. What is the condition of that half-mile road? I mean, if we're approving industrial, I think that stretch of road needs to be considered. Or can you, or I mean, they're referencing the lack of infrastructure on that particular half mile. Can we address that?
Tucker, I'm going to let you comment on that.
Yes, we can definitely look in the condition of the road and see if it warrants more improvements.
Is there a representative of the development here?
While he's coming up, I do want to address one comment, and I know you all know this, but just for the citizens who are here, is I know there was discussion about whether or not it was smart or logical. You know, unfortunately, y'all don't have the authority to decide whether this is smart or logical here, except for within the realm of our regulations. The Supreme Court has stated that if they meet the technical requirements of our subdivision regulations, we essentially have no latitude but to approve that, and that's because zoning is the tool to govern use, and this is unzoned, so we don't have the use or compatibility tool in our toolbox. So I just want to make sure, folks, I think there's a lot of people who might agree that this might not be logical or smart, but that's just not something that's even before you all to consider in an unzoned area.
Give us your name.
Good evening. I'm Kyle Strawn with Dewberry, here to answer any questions you may have.
I have a question. Have you considered another way to get in and out of here instead of just the turnaround with the cul-de-sac at the end? Have y'all looked at that?
To be honest, I was not too involved with the layout, but I can ask those questions and get back with the staff.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the engineer?
The gentleman who spoke a minute ago talked about an asphalt plant. What is your or the developer's vision of what would be in here?
None, yeah.
You'd have to ask the developer. I've not.
Are they here?
Matthew, am I not writing that we just don't have the ability to ask that question?
He could put homes on here if he wanted to. You know, he could divide this into much smaller lots and put asphalt plants. I mean, this is unzoned Baldwin County.
No, I'm just curious as to what the thought process was of what he would put in here.
So it's called Ship Industrial Park. The intent is to put light industrial, but even heavy industrial uses in there. We have no use regulatory authority in this situation.
Infrastructure supports it.
So let me just say that we do defer heavily to the Highway Department on that. They have been very involved in this project because of how Ship Road ties into a future anticipated entrance for Novellis. They will continue to be involved in it through the construction process. I have to rely on them to say that they've gotten to the comfort point that they have on this. The one thing that I thought was a great point, and I think warrants maybe even throwing this on as a condition, is maybe there should be a second turnaround at a logical point here. So just to make sure you don't truly have to go all the way to the end to turn around, and that helps provide a little bit more mobility within the site for potentially larger vehicles going in and out. I don't think we'd be pushing the limits on something like that for unzoned, but otherwise they have checked the boxes, and again, Tucker's here if y'all have any questions about that in terms of meeting the county's technical requirements for a road.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I really have a problem with access to this parcel. It's the access. So do we have the opportunity to ask the developer to come up with a different access, not use, but how to access the property?
We could ask if they would do that as a courtesy, but we do not have the legal grounds to require it. We would need to amend our subdivision regulations to say a non-residential subdivision, for instance, has to have 2 accesses, or there's been a lot of consideration on residential developments requiring 2 accesses over 30 lots because that's what's required by the building code.
I think I would agree with her, but maybe they could look at a service road off of 65 or something like that runs right along 65. I don't know, but it just seems like it's so far back in there. I think we should ask the Highway Department just to look at those other options to get in and out of that particular area.
I have another question. Could we approve it subject to an alternative access being provided?
I would rather we table it so Highway can take a second look regarding health, safety, and welfare of the single access. In a situation like that, so they can make that a more formal determination there.
Okay, any other questions? Don't know that I closed the public hearing, but I'm going to close the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kyle. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we table this for 60 days to allow the folks who live out there as well as the developer to explore with the Highway Department and others alternative egress and ingress to the site.
And could we just make that like the December meeting instead of 60 days?
Yeah.
Could we make that the December meeting
Defer it
instead
to
of
a meeting.
60 days?
Until the December meeting.
Because it will fall after that, so it'll mess it up.
Yeah. All right. Mr. Boogers made a motion to table this till the
second
December
that.
meeting. All right. Michael Mullick has seconded the motion.
And I want to clarify for the record that you all are tabling it just on a safety issue to evaluate the additional access.
Any questions on the motion?
I have I'm sorry to prolong this. We're tabling it for 60, or till the December meeting to explore alternative access. But even if they explore that alternative access and Highway comes up with an alternative access, it's still going to be the developer doing us a favor of exploring that alternative access. Am I wrong in that?
If Highway takes a second look at this and determines, wow, now that we've looked at the condition of Ship Road or something, that we really do need additional access to this for safety reasons, then they could make that case. I think that's going to be a very difficult case to make, so I don't want there to be any false expectations here. But we would have to come up with clear evidence that there's a really legitimate safety concern for us to require them to have a different access, unless the developer just wants to do it as a courtesy.
Yeah, and the other concern I see is any other access look around the site is probably going to be through another residential area. So I don't know that but anyway, we certainly, I agree. I'm sitting up here struggling. I don't like it, but I know I have to set that aside, and I'm trying to find, to me, it's a bad plan to have this type traffic going through an area where it's residential. But I don't see how we stop it. And I hate to say the word stop it. I just don't think it's a good plan, but I don't see a way for us as a planning commission, based on what we've seen before. But to have them look at it, I think it's a good plan, see if something else can be done.
Yeah, hopefully if all these people get together, maybe they can find something that will work.
All right, so we have a motion and a second on the floor to table it to the December meeting. Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. All right, we're going to open the public hearing now for case number SPP 23-21, Pleasant Oaks subdivision. By the way, welcome back, Ms. Booth.
Thank you. So before you is a request for a 6-lot residential subdivision. It's located in Planning District 5, unzoned. Subject property is located on the west side of County Road 112, approximately 2.87 miles south of Phillipsville Road. As I stated, there's District 5 and no zoning. Total area is 21.53 acres with 6 lots proposed. No traffic study required. No drainage improvements required. There are no potential wetlands, and I want to clarify that is a typo. There are wetlands that are out there, and they have been reflected on the plat, so this is a typo. There are no new streets, roads, or sidewalks, curb, and gutter to be installed. However, the common drives are required, and they will be required to be installed, accepted, and approved by Baldwin County Highway. This is your lot layout. This aerial map. The way this parcel is laid out, when Highway 112 went through there, it actually split a small portion of that out. That little triangle is going to be absorbed into the other parcel on the other side of the road, so it's a remnant parcel of this one, but it's going to be absorbed in this another one, so it's not part of this subdivision. And so they will have to show that, they have to submit to planning and zoning an exemption to do a common line move, to delete the line there, to merge those two parcels. So staff does recommend approval with specific conditions, an updated title report listing all easements, rights-of-way, et cetera, before the notice of action is, or it shall be provided prior to notice of action being issued. The remnant parcel by public acquisition of County Road 112 shall be brought into compliance with lot size requirements prior to final plat approval. The common drive shall be installed, inspected, and approved and accepted by Baldwin County Highway Department before final plat approval or final plat application can be given. And then the general conditions, and I'll answer any questions you may have.
All right, any questions for staff? Okay. I have 3 signed up. Gail Wilson. No Gail. Wade Wilson. How about Semester Hudson? They all got tired of waiting.
Cecil Hudson.
Huh?
Cecil Hudson.
Not the way it is on here. All right, anybody else wish to speak on this item?
Mr. Hudson is the engineer.
Who?
The engineer, and he's here.
I don't think he has
Okay.
anything, no.
You want to speak?
I'll be happy to answer any questions, but I don't have anything to say.
All right, any questions for them? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. Anybody? Unless you have questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve, subject to staff conditions.
Okay, Is that Mr. Tonsmeyer down there? Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Have any questions on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we have 5 more items. Are we ready to go on, or we need to take a break? All right, we're moving on. Open the public hearing now for case number SC 23-37 BFLC Elam Creek West Phase 6.
Just a moment, I don't see the staff report. Yeah. Thank you. It's
Let me take over.
He knows I can't drive. And it's another BFLC, because you can't go a whole meeting without a BFLC case.
All right. People do not minimize things without permission.
Five lot subdivision. Plain District 13 is unzoned. And here you can see, and this time I put an inset where you can see there's a 60-foot flag lot. So there's a question about that last time. So the largest is 90 acres and the smallest is 3. And we are recommending approval, and I have additional slides if you have any questions.
All right, any questions for staff?
I have a question. What's your minimum width for a local road? I didn't look it up. Instead of 60 feet, do we need additional width?
Do you mean for the road that's the access road, or
Well,
a
it's
flag
part of
lot?
it's the flag
The
lot?
flag, it's actually 30 feet. And since this is such a large lot, they usually do at least 60, you're talking about the width for a flag?
Yes.
Usually we do 60 if there's a large lot, so it can be subdivided at least once more.
Okay. I
But
was
typically
just checking.
30, if you have like a standard size lot, you have a 30-foot flag.
That wasn't I was asking what your minimum street width, right of way for a
Oh, the
local
right-of-way,
road.
right.
Mhm.
Well,
Do you know what that is?
50, I guess it would be the minimum,
Okay.
yes.
All right. Thank
And that's
you.
the standard that you see.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have one that's more a broader question than just this particular subdivision. When we approve these subdivisions, we do ask that they bring broadband there to at least one lot.
That's only for the the larger lots don't have that requirement. That's, I believe, under 20,000 square feet?
My question is, we have approved numerous parcels, if you will, into subdivisions for this particular massive subdivision. If we're approving these one at a time, why wouldn't, and this is, as I say, this is a broader question than just this, but if we're approving these things one at a time, why wouldn't we require that broadband connection to each one that we approve?
Well, they're all larger, the minimum lots that he creates are usually 3 acres, and so those wouldn't require broadband. Like I said, I think it has to be under 20,000
Yeah.
square feet for broadband.
The simple answer is we would need to amend the regulations to require that. Currently, the trigger for broadband is not being triggered by these lots that are 3 acres or larger, and with no new infrastructure.
Can we look into amending the regulations?
Hopefully some cell towers will come in and serve this area. No, I'm just kidding.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Let's file that one away.
All right, any other questions? I have no one signed up to speak. Was there anybody that wanted to speak that missed signing up? All right, closing the public hearing. I entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve subject to staff conditions.
Seconded.
Second.
Mr. Bias made the motion to approve. Greg, you seconded it? Sorry, Bill, I heard him first. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're going to open the public hearing now for case number SC 23-39, Graham's Place.
All right, Commissioners, Graham's Place is a 3-lot subdivision. Subject property is located in Planning District 16, located east of 2nd Street and south of Graham Street, about a quarter-mile west of US Highway 98. The subject property is zoned RSF2, and the total property area is about 1.49 acres. Let's see here. Traffic studies are required. The drainage narrative has been reviewed and accepted with a condition by us in the Highway Department. Wetlands are not present on the subject property. Here is your plat. Here's an enlarged imagery of your plat. There is a residence on the proposed Lot 2 that is marked to be demolished. Here is your aerial and locator, utilities letter. I did wanted to point out one thing. Due to the lot size on this subdivision, they did not meet the current requirements for ISO, so they did increase, we proposed that they increase their side setbacks to 11 feet to make the structure, any proposed structures to be built farther apart. We have also on the drainage narrative, requested that the applicant made a condition to add a note to the plat reflecting that a drainage study will be provided to our department with a zoning site plan application for each lot showing any detention areas required to prevent any downstream impacts from the adjoining parcels when they get ready to build single-family dwellings. And staff's recommendation is for approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
But, Fabi, you said this is on RSF2. I'm assuming
Yes.
these 3 lots will be conform with the minimum lot requirements?
Yes, they're about 6,000 square feet larger, because RSF2 requires a minimum of 15,000.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
I know that we discussed the correction on the property data about the lots. It shows that the total property area to be divided is 1.49 acres plus or minus, and the lot size is 2.38.
Yes, that's a typo.
So just to be on the record as correcting that.
Yes, I apologize. The lot sizes are all equal of 0.49 acres. Yes.
Any other questions for staff? Okay. Hunter Smith, did you want to speak? You're representing the developer, aren't you?
I can answer any questions.
Okay. Mr. Smith represents the developer, so does anybody have any questions for him? All right. I have Ruben Cadena.
I'm Ruben Cadena. My house is adjacent to the lot that's going to be split. I've been out of town for 2 months and came back, so I haven't had a chance to talk to my neighbors, but they've been texting me. Most of us were hoping that the lot would be split into 2 and not 3. I don't know if access is going to be provided on Graham Road. Currently, if that's the route, right now, I'll be looking at from the backyard. I'll lose all my privacy, and I'll be looking, I guess, at the fronts of houses, and then the 2 houses on the other end of the street. There are the only 3 of us that have access. So, for me personally, I'm just concerned about the extra, I guess, access to the road there. It's not heavily traveled, and my house was the last one built in my little area, and I built that 21 years ago. So we haven't had any change, and I know that it's probably the same concern my neighbors have. So I'll talk to him back there and see what their plans are.
Okay. Thanks, sir. Dale Marston.
Good evening. My name is Dale Marston. I live at 7210 Graham Street, which is at the extreme end of that road you see on the north side of those lots. I was on this commission about 8 years ago, so first of all, I just want to, you have a thankless job, and you don't get paid. And I'm glad I'm not on this commission anymore. But that Graham Street right-of-way road is no more than 12 feet wide. There's absolutely, I cannot drive down that street when Ruben's coming in and I'm leaving unless one of us pulls into a ditch. He has what, 1 or 2 cars? My neighbor has a car. I've got a teenage son. That's 4 or 5 cars trying to get down that road daily. You add 2 more lots trying to utilize that little tiny road, which, by the way, Tucker, don't take any of my comments about the conditions and widths of the roads in Montrose as derogatory. I like it is right now. I propose that here's my question. How many subdivided lots must be created in a bulk parcel before they create their own entry? That's public right-of-way on the north and west side. It's going to be extraordinarily difficult during construction phases, and depending on how many people live there, that road's not adequate. if there's a possible way where these 3 lots could be served with a common drive that runs on the south side of their property. Because, as I said, Graham Street is a dead end. There's a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit on a 12-foot wide paved right-of-way. It's supposedly maintained by the county, but I weed eat that. Reuben can attest to it. I weed eat it every week because I want the water to flow like it's supposed to on a swale on the north side of that road heading to the east. I don't mind maintaining it. I only complain to my wife and kids about it. But the changes that either the developer or the county are going to have to take on, not only on Graham Street, but on 2nd Street, because that road's not that much wider. I've got other neighbors who live on 2nd Street or here. They'll tell you the same thing. I'm not asking the county to widen any roads. I'm only asking that the developer or this committee consider having this access through a common driveway, that they can have their own dead-end road on the south side of the property and serve all 3. Because right now, the dead end that all the trucks and all the construction activity you're going to utilize are going to be on my dead end. I call it my dead end road on Graham Street, which cannot handle it. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Hollingshead.
Hey, how are y'all? I basically reiterate what he said, but I live on 23744 2nd Street, and so 2nd is no wider than Graham, and we like it that way. I guess I'm asking for, maybe 2 lots instead of 3 because the traffic through there, because my kids ride bikes on 2nd Street, and it's just a nice, quaint area, and just adding 2 more houses there, and the traffic is going to be a mess, and not to mention the construction, jam up there. So that is it. I appreciate y'all's time.
Okay, thank you, sir. That's all I had signed up. Was there anybody else that failed to sign up that wished to speak? All right. I'm going to close the public hearing on that. And anything else, Ms. Waters?
No, sir.
So I have a question. I know what they're saying. Why aren't we requiring Graham Street to be widened? No, I'm not. I'm talking to our staff. Regardless of what you folks say, we're doing a development, I need to know why we're not requiring the roadway to be widened.
I'm going to defer to Tucker, but yeah, I would say that if these do not meet the minimum standards that we would require for a new subdivision, that we do not approve this lot for subdivision. And so I have to defer to Tucker as to whether or not it meets those minimum standards.
Yeah, I mean, this fits there. I mean, all of them don't want it widened. I think that's been looked at in the past. I mean, this is close knit. I mean, there's a lot of houses really tight in there, so, I mean, it's not a misfit really, but, I mean, I don't know if there's a possibility of them doing a common drive, but that may be something to look into.
Is there any appetite by the developer to put in a separate Graham Street
Well, listen,
Part 2?
I'm going to jump in on this. Is Graham Street a public road?
Yes.
So if it's a public road and you develop and you got property next to a public road, why would you build a separate one? No, I disagree. I think you got to be consistent. In my opinion, you need to be consistent. I hear what the neighbors are saying, but this is, I don't know why we'd make a parallel road just because the neighbors don't like it and want him to do it. He's got a public road there adjacent to him.
And also Graham Street, I mean, meets our single purpose policy as far as house counts and all that, so that was also taken into consideration.
I'm not trying to do Hunter's job. I'm just asking, on just about every subdivision we do, we always ask for the roadways, additional pavement to be added to get it up to a county standard. So I guess that's why I'm asking is, why won't we do that here? Unless,
I think it's the location, to be honest. I mean, all the residents around there don't want it, so, I mean, it's not something we pushed.
Hunter, you got anything you want to add? I mean,
Just that the roadways in this particular area are all very much like this. If you look at the tax map that was up before, this lot in particular is much larger than anything around it. Everything else has been cut up, very similar to what we're proposing. I think the area is quaint, and I think it's conducive to what we're trying to do here. We're, in the big picture, you're talking about adding 2 more residences than what's already there. Don't know that the impact is that detrimental to the area, especially if you look around and consider the lots in the direct vicinity.
Is this 2 homes there or 3? I mean, there are 3 lots.
There's one home existing.
Oh. Okay.
Which we are planning on tearing down, not me, but my client's planning on tearing it down, and 3 new homes will be constructed by subsequent owners. Not, the person who's developing these lots is not planning on constructing.
all right, any other questions?
I have a question. What's the access to the existing residence that's going to be torn down? Is there?
It's actually on there.
Yeah, you can see it.
Look on your drawing, it's down there on the bottom side of the lot. You can see the little loop
Right
drive.
here, the loop. You see a little loop here?
Off of Second?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a gravel drive, right here?
So that's there?
Yes.
It's existing.
Can it be extended to the lot 3?
I would think that, yeah, sure, anything like that could happen.
And it's just a gravel driveway, not a public road?
Oh, yeah, it's
So
the
it's
driveway
maintained.
that house used to access the street.
Okay, thanks.
All right, any other questions? All right. I'm going to close the public hearing if I haven't already. Any questions or comments before we take a motion?
Is it my understanding that are we in a situation where we can't require them to create another access? We're in the same boat that we were a couple of cases ago, that it would be really nice if he did, but.
Well, it used to be a standard you couldn't have double-fronted lots, and that's what you're actually asking them to do, to put a right-of-way on the south side of these lots, and you'll have double-fronted lots. Is that true? Do we still have that regulation?
I don't know that we have that regulation anymore. We do recognize through lots in our zoning ordinance.
It's discouraged.
Yes.
Discouraged. I would highly discourage it myself, but.
I think, though, well, this is a tricky situation. And ultimately, really, the Highway Department is here to guide y'all on this. If they feel like these roads meet the standards, then that's the technical requirement for this applicant. And if the technical requirement has been met, then that's for them to say.
Good point.
And then if they're concerned that it hasn't been met, then the question could be, well, maybe they just have a private drive shared by all 3 using the existing access that's there, so that way the ingress and egress remains the same as it has been historically for that. But again, really this has to start with highway.
Yeah, I mean, I look at this as like, you could be asking for a rear-loaded alley, to access 3 lots, but I'm just not sure there's evidence that compels us to require that. I mean, it's not going to change the traffic pattern. They're still going to generate the same number of trips regardless. We're just trying to put the access in the rear as opposed to the front.
And I don't think we can do that unless Highway has said that it has to be done that
Yeah,
way in
exactly.
order to meet their standards. And that's part of the application that they file with us, saying that highway has approved it this way, and then we have to approve it. But they've not done that, so then we can't, on our own, in a subdivision that meets the minimum lot sizes and requirements and setbacks, then go and say, we'll approve your subdivision, but we want you to put your driveways here, so that you don't touch this road for a reason. That would need to come from highways, part of the application process before we even get here.
Well, just looking at the paperwork that's here, outside of our highway engineer being here, there's nothing in here from highway, yes, no, or indifferent. There's nothing that says, hey, this is perfectly fine, or nothing that says, hey, these improvements have to be made. Is that a matter of we don't do a traffic study because it's under 50 lots?
We would address that during the technical review. They would have shared their review comments with us, expressing whether this would be appropriate or not appropriate.
And that's my point. I don't see any of those comments here. So is this appropriate or isn't it appropriate? Or do we need to table it and let them come back and say it's appropriate or inappropriate?
Excuse me, sir. Please don't.
But believe me, not to technically address the coming from the public, but that's my frustration, is that we can table it, that's fine. And then 2 weeks from now or a month from now, Highway's going to come back and say, yep, they're okay, or no, they're not. But if they come back and say they're okay, then it doesn't matter what anybody in the public said.
So practically what took place here is when a subdivision fronts an existing road and it's a county maintained road, it's very rare that they're not to county standards. So they filled out comments in the checklist and staff moved right along. So the fact that staff moved right along meant that Highway blessed it.
Yes, and it has met the requirements.
It has met the requirements. And so Tucker's here to verify that, unless he's heard some concerns where he wants to take another look at it. Otherwise, it has received their blessing.
Thank you.
I have a question. On the previous case for Pleasant Oaks, they required the shared driveways, the common driveways, and that was 6 lots.
That's right. The location.
Can maybe Tucker explain the difference?
Those were located on a collector route, so it's kind of it's a different reg for that.
Any other questions?
Doctor, in your opinion, does it need to be looked at?
Mary just looked at the regs, and there is a clause. You know what number that is? Yeah, in our road design guide, there is a clause that this fits, so it meets our policy.
Okay, if no other question, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve subject to staff conditions.
Okay, Mr. Bice made a motion to approve. Have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Mullick made the second. Any questions on the motion?
Staff conditions.
Staff conditions. All right, any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
No.
Wait a minute. First off, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
All right, we got to roll call.
Mr. Bias?
Yes.
Mr. Tonsmeyer? Mr. Mullick?
Yes.
Mr. Siebert?
No.
Mr. Boer?
No.
Ms. Stratiger? Mr. Seal?
No.
Ms. Burnett?
Yes.
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-4.
Okay? Motion's approved. All right, are we good to go? Planning Commission, make sure if anybody needs to take a break. 3 more. Open the public hearing now for case number SC 23-41, Live Oak Manor.
Hello. Hi. This is for a 2-lot subdivision. It is located in Planning District 3. It is unzoned. It is located in, at the end of McMillan Road off of State Highway 59 in Stockton. No traffic study required, no drainage improvements required, no potential wetlands affecting the development, no new streets. That's your lot layout. Aerial map. And staff does recommend approval with no conditions other than final plat approval will be administrative approval.
Okay, any questions for staff? No questions? All right, is anybody here to represent this application? Hunter? You got anything you need to add?
I can answer any questions.
All right, I have no, is there anyone signed up? Because I don't have it on my screen right now. I guess no one? Was there anybody here signed up on this project? Speak, this agenda item? All right, any questions for Mr. Hunter Smith? Okay. All right, if no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval.
All right, Mr. Monk's made a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is that Greg? I mean, Bill?
Yeah.
I keep calling you Greg tonight for some reason. All right, any questions on the motion?
I have one question. I'm sorry. How do you access this Lot 2 when McMillan Road dead ends at Lot 1? I don't see.
Actually, that's a flag lot, and it does, both of them connect at the end of McMillan.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so we have a motion to approve and second. Any other questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we have a couple of site plan items, so we'll open the public hearing for case number CSP 23-19. I don't want to butcher your name, so it's the hydroponic farm. Is it Gurgis?
I've been calling it Gurgis. Mr. Arp is with us here today, so when Randy comes to address the Planning Commission, he can correct us all.
All right.
And good evening, Commissioners. So CSP 2319. And so, Commissioners, we don't have anyone signed up to speak. I'll be very brief, but I will touch on a couple of things that the Planning Commission may have questions about. And so you see your case before you right there. And so as you see there, the main thing here is that the building is pretty large, 39,758 square feet. And that's what's triggering the CSP here. But of course, it's in Planning District 30, as you see. The only thing I'll tell you here, or bring to your attention here on the site details, is again, you see the size of the building, which is triggering this. We don't have any local provisions that are going to affect the site. And so I'll explain this right here while we put the land use table in here. So an agricultural use typically is a permitted use and does not trigger a commission site plan, but because it's a major project of its size is why we're here today. And something that's not in your packet right there, we had a condition of approval about the turnout permit that has been furnished. We received it yesterday. We'll just show you very quickly. The parcel is what you see in light yellow. The crosshatched area is where this project will go. So it's a very large parcel that was bisected by the Beach Express several years ago. This is zooming in on the property itself. We'll kind of flip through some of these other slides quickly. What I do want to point out here, though, is the proximity to both the city of Orange Beach and the city of Gulf Shores. We customarily reach out to the cities. They had no comment. And we'll go through quickly through the photos of the property surrounding. Here's your building elevations. Here's your floor plan. And then this is zoomed out on the entire site. What I'll go into greater detail about is that the site itself is not triggering landscape buffers except along the Foley Beach Express. And so what they furnished for us is a very robust landscape buffer, knowing that some of the existing vegetation there may not survive. It's mainly privet hedge and popcorn trees. So they're showing us a very nice, very robust landscape buffer. You see color-coded here. I don't color-code quite as well as Corey Rhodes, so forgive me. We have their MPDS from 8M. Now, they are utilizing septage, which you'll see on another slide. Their drainage calculations were reviewed. We appreciate Tucker reviewing that for us. There's no covenants and restrictions. The center right there is their health department permit because they are going to use a septic tank, power from Baldwin EMC. They're using both well and city water from Orange Beach. The city water will be for their fire protection. And so conditions of approval, there are quite a few on here. I won't go through them all other than to say that number one on the unique items has been satisfied because we did receive the turnout permit. We received that yesterday. And then we didn't talk about waste dumpsters and that sort of thing. I didn't dwell on that too much because it's central to the site, but we do reserve the right to deal with that at the time of final closeout if it's inadequate. And with that, Commissioners, I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay, any questions for staff?
I have a question. They're using well water, so they don't need a storage facility? Well, I don't know a lot about these types of farms, but I do believe that constant water flows through. Just, you know, it's a high water usage type of facility.
And so, Mr. Chairman and Planning Commissioners, I'll let Mr. Arp address that in greater detail. My recollection is they have a 4-inch well on site, which is a pretty large well, which will have considerable flow. They will also bring a 6-inch main in from Orange Beach that has a fire hydrant connected to it. So they have plenty of water from 2 different sources, but of course Mr. Arp can speak to that more fluently than I.
Any other questions for staff? Okay. Mr. Arp, you're the only one signed up to speak.
Mr. Arp did not sign up in opposition.
No, it says support here, so.
No, it's Sam Gurgis.
What?
Sam Gurgis.
Gurgis.
Anyway, to answer your question, it's recycled. So it will have a tank, but it'll be in the building. And he's contemplating doing the fish, which is, I can't remember what it's called. You know what it's
Aquaculture.
Aquaculture. So then we'll have fish tanks that will provide the fertilizer for the plants, and it's still cycled through the drip system.
Okay.
I don't know if you have any questions on it. It's pretty straightforward. There's one thing I would ask, if I could. We're using the exemption from the fire code because it's an agriculture building, but to get that exemption, it limits us to 10 people in the building at a time. And I originally had the parking spaces as need not be built for the extra, and staff recommended we go ahead and build them now. It's just a lot of extra expense for something we're not going to use, but that's up to you. We'll do it either way. And I want to bring up one other thing, which is on the tabled one. And Steve, you talked about we used to have 500 feet or whatever it was between cul-de-sacs, and I think you're right. And if you look at the fire code, if you consider that road an access road, it's 500 feet with anything less than 26 foot of pavement. And if you're 26 foot of pavement, you can go 750 feet without a turnaround of some kind for fire access. And I don't know if anybody ever catch that because you have to have a fire chief that looks at subdivisions in order to get that review. And typically you don't get that outside the cities.
Good point.
So anyway, any questions on the plan? I was just throwing that in for consideration. I don't know if it counts or not, but it's in the fire code.
So there's a requirement out there that you can only have 10 people in there?
For non-sprinkled.
Oh, right.
If you change the use of the building, you would have to sprinkle it because of the size. There's 3 exempt buildings: factories, storage, and farm, but farm has an additional exemption of limiting the number of people in it.
Okay.
So in order to qualify for a non-sprinkled building, we have to limit the building to 10 people.
So how many parking spaces do you want? 10, 15?
Whatever's on the south side where we have the handicap access.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could
There was like
interject.
19 or something we were going to put in, but.
And I sympathize with Mr. Arp and understand the question, but I think since we're talking about complying with the zoning ordinance, that would be a matter for the Board of Adjustment.
Okay,
And-
that's
and-
fine, I just thought I'd bring it up because it was.
Yes, sir,
not answered.
understood. Fair question, and no worries on asking, but you're certainly welcome to approach that with the Board of Adjustment if your client's interested in doing that.
Thank you. Buford, appreciate it. All right, any other questions for Mr. Art?
I have one. What do they plan on farming?
You know, he's new to this, so he says strawberries grow very quickly and very easily, so I know he's thinking about strawberries. And I don't know what else after that. He's a tinkerer, he likes to tinker, you know, so he'll get it set up and probably get bored with it and sell it to someone else, I don't know, and make money.
And on the staff recommendations, number 3, it says the plantings depicted on sheets L1 and L2 shall be completely installed prior to obtaining their certificate of occupancy. I tried to find that on the,
Those are the landscape sheets.
Yes, ma'am. And so, well, we'll go back to that real quick.
What is that?
So here is our landscape plan. So this is L1. So this is L1 in full size. And so here is L2. So what the landscape architect did is they gave us a zoomed out drawing so we could see the landscape buffer along Foley Beach Express. Then they zoomed in tighter around the building, just for clarity.
it was confusing because it said plantings and this was a farm, and I thought they were trying to plant before they got their occupancy.
No, but
Inside.
He's planning on doing some trees of some kind in that field out there. Right now he has goats and sheep, but he wants to do a orchard of some kind in some of that space too.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
I'll close the public hearing. Anybody else have any questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Okay, so Mr. Fletcher's made a motion to approve with conditions.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
I second that.
okay, Mr. Burnett has seconded the motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, for our most difficult item on the agenda tonight, an ice machine. Case number CSP 2333, Highway 98 ice machine. We'll open the public hearing for this.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. And this is a pretty simple case. And I'll spend most of my time just explaining very briefly why it's before the Planning Commission. And this rises to the level of coming to the Planning Commission because the machine is proposed on RA zoning. And so that triggers in the zoning ordinance, that triggers bringing it to the Planning Commission for approval. So we'll just touch on it very briefly. And everyone may remember, this was the former site of BJ Farms with the big strawberry fields east of Alberta. And so Mr. Meyerhoff, who's the developer here, is going to lease a portion of that property to place the ice machine upon. And the RA zoning brings it before you folks. And so, though abbreviated, we have all the information we need. He did furnish us a drawing of what this particular machine will look like, as you see right there. And then we zoomed in tightly so you can see the area where the machine will go. This is the landscape plan. So that's the main thing here, is that the zoning ordinance requires you to put a landscape buffer around the ice machine, so that way if it's no longer maintained and becomes unsightly, it's shielded. One thing we're going to ask the Planning Commission to consider, is we talked about it as staff, is that the applicant is proposing and showing on here using a palm tree to meet the overstory tree height. If it's the pleasure of the Planning Commission, that could be replaced with a crepe myrtle. which would be sufficient for this type of thing and probably more attractive and easier to maintain. And so with that, Commissioners, I have the recommendation for approval here. It may seem like a lot of conditions of approval on here because I did want to make certain that we memorialized here that there's a temptation when one of these types of machines is installed that a lot of non-permitted signage may go up around it. We wanted to memorialize that part of the zoning ordinance outright disallows wind-driven flags and banners and that sort of thing. So we're memorializing that here, and we also address, we reserve the right to come back with an NO fee if we get complaints about trash or that sort of thing. Other than that, fairly straightforward, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Buford, I can't believe I'm asked this question because it's an ice machine site. But for commission site plan approval, don't we require a scale stamp drawing?
And so, Commissioner, that's a great question. And considering the size of this, and also they did give us a dimension drawing. They did give us a dimension drawing, and knowing that this is going to have to go to the building department and get their approval to properly anchor it to the ground, then we thought this would be sufficient in terms of bringing it before.
I'm always fearful of opening up a can of worms with, drawing a blank on the term, of a little bit bigger site coming. Well, they got away with it because they didn't have a stamp drawing, and then a little bit bigger site next time. So I guess that's why I at least wanted to ask the question.
What is requested is what as you see on screen right there.
Okay. Is it outside the highway construction setback?
No, sir, it is, and I memorialized that in the condition of approval, just so they know that this is a qualifying structure that can go within the highway construction setback, but they know that if ALDOT ever needed to use it, ALDOT could make them move it.
All right. Just one other quick question. Why are they putting the landscape buffer on the outside where the passing traffic would not be able to see the ice machine?
Well, the intention here is not to hide it completely, but the idea here is that what if it becomes derelict and is not maintained? At least it is shielded. At least it has some shielding and some screening from traffic.
All right, any other questions? Okay. Mr. Meyerhoff, did you want to speak? You sat here all night long waiting for this one, didn't you? So sorry about that. All right.
There we go.
If nothing else, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we approve the Highway 98 ice machine subject to staff conditions.
All right, Mr. Cybers made a motion to approve. Have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Booyer seconded the motion. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Any new business? I know none. Public comments?
Mr. Chairman, and this may be something that Matthew wants to mention, but it's our understanding up here that we're losing at least one valuable member of your team who's been very helpful to us. And I would like to make a motion that we acknowledge her years of service to this commission before, during, and after all of our service here.
I think that's a great motion, and he did steal my thunder a little bit there, but you did it in such an elegant manner that I can't really be critical.
I'll second.
So y'all have noticed, may have noticed that Brenda did the roll call tonight, and you may be seeing more emails from her, and that's because DJ is about 4 weeks away from retirement, and she was actually telling me that she, in her time in planning and zoning, for 12 years with planning, she has only missed 2 planning commission meetings ever. And so she has been a very faithful, consistent member of our team. She has been a huge help to me in all sorts of things. And there's a gazillion things that go on behind the scenes, including with advisory committees and stuff like that, that DJ is a huge help with. So she's going to be sorely missed. She has a wealth of knowledge. And I do think that's very appropriate to make a motion and a second to recognize.
So we did have a motion and a second, didn't we? All in favor of that, say aye. Aye. There's nobody going to oppose that.
You said she couldn't retire. Deny it.
Can I have permission to revise and extend?
We do have a track record of bringing people back part-time, so stay tuned.
Any staff reports?
That was the main thing I was going to say. And then to Brandon's point about the ice machine, I'll tell you what, these little commercial site plans are some of our most difficult because it feels really overbearing to require a ton of documents for something small like that. But we also want to make sure they're not improperly impacting an area. So sometimes we just try and strike a medium there. But that's all that I have. Thank you all for your service, and you all did a great job tonight.
I have a question. This was brought up earlier, that you might be looking at 2 entrances to subdivisions, and that maybe you would also look at that for industrial subdivisions or non-residential. Can we see what y'all come up with?
Sure. So if we did anything there, all we would be doing is many of the zoning ordinances have been adopting the requirements of the International Fire Code for 2 access points if there's more than 30 units, 30 lots. And so if we did anything at this point, it would be just adopting that verbatim. There's just continued pressure to adopt that. And, so I just expect that probably to be sometime in the future, we'll see that come along.
And for the non-residential ones, like for the industrial park?
That's a good question we would probably apply it to that because technically he could go put homes on all those lots. He calls it an industrial park, but there's nothing that says he has to put industrial in there. So in an unzoned area, we would probably just say, listen, anything over 30 lots, you have to have two entrances. Great question.
And I had one other comment. In a couple months is our December meeting, and I think it would be nice if we scheduled a short mini Christmas party after our December 7th meeting. 15 or 20 minutes, whatever. We give us a chance to socialize a few minutes.
We can say there are no controversial cases on the agenda.
Keep it short.
Legal counsel?
We'll look into that.
Legal counsel have anything?
I do not. No reports.
Okay. All right, our next meeting's November 2nd. We are adjourned.